There we go.
Are we back up?
I think we're back up. Says we're live.
Okay, well,
So now we're on the other camera.
I'm sorry that you all missed all that exciting stuff that we did.
Yeah. All right, I'll put a link into the other chat and then mess with everything.
Yeah.
Yep, there it is. Go back to the other one.
Is it 20K?
It's disabled the chat now. Piece of junk.
I think that's my 20K.
I think I will find it, hopefully. All I have to do is a comment to the other one. All right.
That's it.
All right, we're back. All right, so that was annoying.
5. All right, are we?
For now, we're streaming again.
We're streaming again, but there's the audience hasn't moved over.
I see Mauricio's here. I don't
Okay.
know who else is here yet. Only one person watching yet, so I guess it's just him.
All right.
Hello.
Oh, 5. Okay, let's find this. My eyes are getting worse the more I look at this board.
I know. That's what, when I started soldering this other board here, I was like, my eyes are worse than I remember them being.
Well, these components are smaller than certainly when I started, and most of what's still in my collection. For these resistors, for example, I mean, when I started out, you couldn't get much smaller than this, and this is easy to read. So they have gotten smaller, but also my eyes. Making a hash of this one. Come on, get in there.
Your eyes have gotten smaller.
But also my eyes have gotten smaller.
Yeah. Glenn's back too.
Welcome back. I'd blame Google because technically it's changes in the Google UI and the interfaces and everything that have caused most of these technical issues today. But also it's Jim.
So what happened? I scheduled it on my phone, and apparently you can't get a stream key for a stream you scheduled from your phone. So I'm cut off. I need to adjust this here. All right, now we're both separate. So you can't get a stream key for when you schedule from your phone. So I had to start streaming from my phone. But then when I went to log into my Chromebook, the Chromebook sent a message to my phone, which then popped up over YouTube, which then closed the YouTube stream because YouTube can't handle that apparently. It can't stream from the background, which I guess kind of makes sense because it wants to have full.
I'm gonna get this soldering iron up to speed. Hey Glenn, what should I set my soldering iron to?
Hot.
Yeah, I had it on 400 when I arrived here, and I think that's probably a little high. But man, I've put 2 components in the board already, so I'm definitely going to begin actually soldering.
You put 2 components in. You didn't solder them yet?
Nope, but I'm definitely going to.
Okay.
I'm going to take the risk of soldering it. I'm actually just going to steal this as a solder.
Yes, that's what I got that for.
Oh, cool. Did you want it?
That's what it's for. You can use it. Go for it.
Okay.
I'm going to use this PCB holder.
All right. So
Glenn says turned up to 11.
Thanks. I'm actually going to go, I think, 350, 360. a nice hot temperature for a quick.
That honestly, I'm impatient. I'm always turning up too hot.
Well, so the real difference, I think, and I know nothing, but the real difference, I think, is if you want to get in and get out, transfer the heat quickly and get out quickly, then you go hot, and that's best for most small discrete components. But if you've got components that are temperature sensitive, then you have to drop it down, and that's most ICs.
Right.
So now there are some ICs on this board already, and they're SMDs, so maybe I should be going lower, but we'll see. When the kit doesn't work, we'll know why. Very good. What solder do I
Yeah,
have
I'm in
here?
this I have some solder too, but it's probably not very good.
I got some better stuff in here. I followed Glenn actually had a tip that he gave me on a previous project to wrap the solder around a pen, and that just made it more accessible for my kid to tear that off the pen every time he came in the room. So I just ended up slinging it in this tin.
So I have a fun, really crazy side project. I know, big surprise. But I bought a Pixel 1. I had a
Right.
Pixel 1 and I traded it a while back for a different phone. I think the Pixel 3, which I then sold to my son, and then got Pixel 4, which is my current phone here.
Mm-hmm.
But the Google changed the whole storage thing again,
Right.
and the Pixel 1 still has unlimited full quality storage,
Okay.
but all the other Pixels don't.
So what's the project?
So the project is I want to take and encode random data into videos and make a unlimited storage drive out of Google Video, Google Photos.
Okay.
Or it could
So
be
you can
photos even too.
upload the full quality. You mean you can store metadata in there and use that metadata as basically as the
So
encrypted
actually,
channel of.
there's a thing called it's called a JAB code. That's a full color. Well, it's not full color. It's an 8-color QR code that's
Right.
supposed to hold more data than a regular QR code.
Is this hot?
And my thought was to use that to encode the data. Glenn says 300.
Well, I'm at 360, and it's
Says I usually run mine from 330 to 350, but I've learned to master not overheating components. Stenography. So it's not going to be stenography. It's going to be actually. So it's not going to be hidden in the image. It's going to just be encoded as an image,
Mhm.
and then use that. So the actual video or photo data itself is the data.
Is the stored data, right?
Yep. So it'd be like a QR code if each frame of the video is a QR code.
So what I've done with my very first join is, of course, to ball join it. So I'm going to go in and reflow that. Okay.
Let's see how many soldering irons we can plug into one outlet. And studio lights.
Okay, so that join isn't pretty, but it will be pretty when I clip it off. Prettier.
Prettier.
At least won't have a ball join there. All right. 60.
So we're also, in addition to doing this, welcome or open to answer any random questions anybody might have.
AMA time.
AMA time. So since apparently we have a couple people watching, I wasn't sure if anybody would be on here or not. So if you have a random question, if it's what the dog's barking at, I don't know. And actually, this microphone should be running through Crisp now, so it should not pick up any of the noise from the fan and stuff. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
All
So
right, made
we're
my
setting the
first
thermos, the mic, the thing to 800.
first 4 joins. Happy.
Mine does not go below 400
Doesn't go below 400.
Fahrenheit.
And I had mine set. Oh, well, I'm Celsius. I
Oh,
had
there
mine
you
set at 400 when I showed up. So
Yeah, he's at my Glenn says 300 Celsius.
right.
So let's see what is that in Fahrenheit.
I think the setting's called effing hot.
572. Okay. I'll just say 600. I need to go get water.
To be honest, this unit that I have kind of looks impressive, but was not an expensive unit. I don't trust that it knows what temperature it's at anyway.
It's probably got a close estimate.
Mm, I don't know. I have no clue that that is accurate at all.
I need to get a thing to a thermometer. Glenn says the audio is indeed crisp.
Cool. All right.
All right, I gotta get some water on my sponge. I forgot to do that earlier.
All right. And I need to find the resistor for R6. 300. All right. Hopefully, this should only be one of these. And I think this is it. Nope, definitely not that one. All right.
All right, so I'll leave that door open if there's no noise coming in from it now, or if the microphone's not picking up the noise. If there is noise in the microphone, let me know and I'll close the door.
The other thing I do with all my resistors, because most of my resistors are larger than this because they're old. But the other thing I do with them is keep them in pre-labeled jars.
Mm.
And of course, in this I don't have any labels, so I have to go by the color codes, and that means I have to be able to see them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and with the tolerance band, that's the one. So that's R6.
I'm gonna try this magnifying lamp, see if that works for me this time, since I couldn't see what I was doing last time.
Oh boy. It's going to take me all like several sessions to build this if I can't find where I need to put the components, because of if I just sit here complaining about my eyes being bad.
So I have this guy here, if you want it.
R6. No, no, I'm being daft right now. I should
Okay.
be able to find R6. They just decided to hide it somewhere on the PCB. There it is. I thought it was I was seeing R8. There we go. Those crafty designers hiding components where you don't want to look for them.
Okay. So if we don't get any questions on the AMA side of things, I mean, you just chat about whatever. But I also got this thing called a interview deck. It's supposed to be good interview questions, so we can just ask ourselves questions
All right, I'm
about
up for that.
whatever.
Yeah, I think most people that are joining our stream know us already. They've already asked us the questions.
You know, it could be they have all the answers. Maybe we should ask them questions. Well, you're asking Glenn what temperature is that thermostat.
They're asking for technical advice because we don't know what to do. That's okay. We've decided to do the stream. We don't know how. Could people that know how join the streams?
Glenn said you should get a monocle.
Yeah, so I brought along this stupid thing which is old, and I have these cheaters, which I can wear. These are actually safety glasses. I think they were for like a gun range, but they're magnifying. So I can use those if I really get stuck. But I was about to chip the legs off of these. But if I do have to resolder any because I get them wrong,
I have more.
I want the
I have
pin.
more resistors in the room.
Yeah, I'll do it when I've done all the resistors and
Okay.
go on, I'll take them off. They've got to come off sometime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I am missing a header in this kit. Oh wait, there it is. So if anybody else is in the area at any time, you're welcome to come by and we'll do kits with you too.
Yep.
Glenn, next time you're in the States.
Definitely stop by. We could definitely have an expert do some Kits and Buoyant too.
Oh yeah, Boyan, absolutely. Boyan's already in the States. He's down in California. I got to meet him down there at the LA in Southern California boot camp, I think it was. Orange County boot camp, something like that.
Uh-huh.
You guys aren't lining up very well. Why is that?
All right. So now I'm going for R10. Theoretically, as I look for these resistors, they should also become fewer and fewer to look for as well. So, I mean, not theoretically, there will be fewer and fewer to look for, but it should theoretically become easier for that reason.
So I used to work with this guy that loved Diet Code Red Mountain Dew.
Right.
And you used to not be able to get it in Boise area. I'm not sure if you can now or not, to be honest. I don't think you can actually.
It was banned for a while in England.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So whenever I'd travel, I would grab him a case of it. And one time it was on sale or something, and I got two cases.
Right.
And on the way back, one of the cases broke open. And so actually, the luggage is coming out of the conveyor belt, and I see these cans of soda coming out, split open, spraying. It was diet, so it wasn't sticky, thank goodness. But uh,
That's not it.
Glenn says as soon as the travel restrictions are lifted, he's on his way to the States. Yeah, cool. Um, so I had this idea. I gave him one case, which is what I usually bring him. He's like, "Oh, thank you so much." And I took the other case and stuck it under my desk. And then every night or every couple days, I would go over and then fill his case back up again.
Right.
And I was expecting him to say something, but he didn't notice. And I'm out now. My case is empty. And I look over and I see his case is full. I'm like, Steve, you haven't been drinking the Mountain Dew. I thought you not like it anymore. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, your case is full. And he's like, wait. And he starts doing counting. He's like, what? Then I started laughing and I told him what I did. But I was hoping he would just discover it on his own.
Yeah, I got hooked on the Mountain Dew when I first came over to the States because I think it had been the restrictions had been lifted by that time anyway. But it certainly hindered Mountain Dew's introduction to the UK. They got banned for having too high a caffeine content. And then a few years later, Red Bull started marketing over there. And I think what happened is that Red Bull just had a better team of attorneys or something and got the regulation through, got past it. And shortly after that, of course, the Mountain Dew did start showing up. But when I came over here, I said, yeah, Mountain Dew is essentially illegal in the UK, or banned. And I had one of the staff saying to me, "Oh, so basically, if you went over there, you could be like a dealer, like a Mountain Dew dealer, go over there in a long Mac and open it up and say, hey, you want some of this, Brown. Well, this is pretty sure this is the resistor. But maybe it's not because it's the tolerance band. Nope, it's not quite right.
I was actually hoping to head over and visit with Zach before he had headed back to Jakarta once the travel ban's lifted up. But I don't think there's going to be time. He's headed back to Jakarta, or getting ready to head back to Jakarta. So I met him in Jakarta, even though he lives in Michigan.
Right.
It always seems like the pictures are like just quite not enough. It's like the one thing I want to see in the picture is not here. And it's like,
Ooh, I found it. I think if I found it, the tolerance band's on the wrong side. Hey, do I remember how to read resistor codes?
I have one here, or I have a chart for it if you want, or an app on my phone even. Oh, I don't have the app on my phone anymore.
I can Google it on my phone. Pretty sure the tolerance band is always on the right, and I'm sure that we answered in the chat before I've Googled it. But
Yeah, the tolerance band's always on the right.
right, well, in that case, that's not the right resistor. but otherwise, it's the okay. So that's definitely wrong.
You ever seen the movie Brainstorm?
I don't believe so. No.
It's oh gosh, what's the guy's name? Christopher Walken movie. He builds this a brain computer interface device,
Right.
and there's a one of the scenes that this woman burns her arm on a soldering iron. And every time I'm soldering, I'm thinking of that. I don't want to burn my arm with a soldering iron because then she has heart problems and she ends up having a heart attack and dying, and that's part of the plot.
Because of a
Yeah,
burned
the
arm.
stress of being, I guess was the idea. I don't know if that even feasible, but
Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't sound too plausible to me.
does it sound plausible to you? Okay.
Tell me something. Does that look like? Does that look orange, black, black, brown to you, or brown, black, black, brown?
I hate it when they do that.
Yeah, because this one's definitely orange, black, black,
There's a green one in there, it looks like.
and this one looks like orange, black, black, black. So I'm not finding what I need here.
It's got green in it. It's green. So brown's not a tolerance, is it? It should be silver, bronze.
Really?
Yeah. Gold, right? Are your tolerances?
It's been too long. I just ignore the last band usually.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, it can be brown. Brown is 1%.
Okay.
So
I normally ignore tolerances because I'm only working on milliamp circuits.
so this is huh.
Because I got another one here that could be a candidate, but I'm struggling to read these things. This does have orange. Nope, that's
So
definitely not it.
why would they introduce brown as a tolerance color? Because now I can't tell which direction to read it from.
Well, it's supposed to have a distance gap, and it doesn't. They don't have that either.
Yeah.
I think these are the cheapest made components.
I swear there's a green band in there, which a green band on blue is hard to see.
I didn't see any green band in that.
Hello, Delphi Pascal Chunky. Yeah, augmented reality would be awesome. Actually, I was genuinely thinking about looking into like some telepresence type stuff, so I could like go to conferences without going to conferences.
We already have that. It's called Skype.
Yeah,
You don't need it to. You don't need to be
I mean, I guess
3D.
technically, if someone just put a laptop and that they could someone would come and talk to me, and that's kind of what I was wanting to do. Because that's the thing you miss. I mean, I can do like a video at a conference, but you miss the chance to sit and talk to somebody.
Right. There is a company right now working on holographics, I believe.
Yeah.
But the amount of attempts that you look at sci-fi movie holographics, and then the amount of attempts that have been done to make holographic communication, and they just all don't compare.
All right, I would say this is brown, green, black, black.
Well, then that's no use to me. I'm looking for orange, black, black, brown. I'm looking for a 3K resistor. And I've been through them twice. And I would say that this is already
Brown is likely bronze in China.
right.
JD suggested.
Well, I tell you what, I'm gonna move on from that resistor, find the next one, and come back and
Process elimination eventually.
Yeah,
There's only one resistor left. This must be the right one. And if we don't have it, like I said, I do have some extra resistors in the other room. Oh,
yeah.
Where'd my solder go?
The other thing that
Do you have an extra roll of solder?
uh
If not, I can go get some.
I do. I don't know what let's see what gauges I've got. That one's probably way too thick, so Right over there.
Sure.
Yeah, the other thing that I'm finding a little confusing is that these are the resistors are labeled with R. I'm guessing that's something unusual because I'm looking for ohms or kilo ohms. I don't mind saying K, but what's R?
Oh, yeah, good point.
Okay, so I guess these kits are have a few minor confusing points. R10 3K.
Well, R would mean resistor, but then yeah, the rating of the resistor should be in, like
Right,
I said.
what's a 150R? Right, I'm guessing that's ohms, but okay. Let's find this resistor.
Hey, there we go. One down.
Oh, I see what you mean. It's kind of
Boyan says he's adding this to Visuino as he watches right now. Adding, what are you adding to Visuino? I'm curious now.
okay. This is definitely brown, green, black, black. This is the one I handed to you that had the green.
Yeah, it does have a green.
So R11.
You adding resistor
Resistor color codes.
color codes to Visuino? That'd be awesome. Oh, you know what? I have a multimeter here. We could actually just test it and see.
You know what? Why did I not think of that? I've got a multimeter. I mean, it's a cheapy one, but I've got a multimeter sitting right here. Brought one with me. So give me. Up to.
You know, a good cheap multimeter is such a valuable tool when we're doing anything with electronic stuff.
I've had this in my kit for forever, and I've used it on everything from PCBs to, checking the car and whatever else. It does just fine. I've also got, as you saw, the multimeter, the city scope that I brought with me. It does just fine. It's nothing special. That is the 150. I've got the right one. That can stay there because I'm going to need that again. Okay, I want R11.
You know, I was doing my talk on the brain computer interface a while back in the electroencephalography,
Yep.
which is the electrical signals that get to your scalp from your brain. And I was thinking, I wonder if you could do that with a multimeter. So I grabbed my multimeter and put it on my scalp, and sure enough, it registered stuff. I mean, it wasn't sensitive enough to actually do anything useful,
Right.
but it's it's like the thing that's like, how does this magic? Oh, it's just a multimeter.
But your skin has some natural
Yes.
resistance and capacitance as well. So
I was
sure
picking
what
up
you were
voltage.
up. Okay.
Voltage fluctuations, which comes from muscles as well.
Right. And yeah, if you have twitches or
Um, that's not a good solder there.
yeah, when I was a kid, the parts were bigger, even the resistors. I mean, they got much smaller. And my cache that I have at home is of those parts that I've had since I was a kid. So I very rarely come across the smaller parts. And the last soldering project that I did that I struggled with was that Xbox because the joins are about the size of you'd expect to find in a cell phone. They're really tiny joints.
Yeah. Speaking of, did you bring your new game?
I did
thing?
not bring the
no.
game, no. So I found more about this thing out, and I don't think it is what I thought it was. So, for the people watching, I bought this thing at a thrift store yesterday, and it's a handheld games console, and it's called the Gopher 2. It's basically, as I understand it, a Sega Genesis emulator. And it also has Nintendo stuff in there as well. And I think it's made by AT Games, which is a Taiwanese company and was originally made for the Taiwanese market. But they eventually opened it up and sold it out into Russia and the US, which is why the menu is all in Russian. But the games are all listed in English. But what was interesting is that the Gopher 1, the predecessor to what I have, I think, was a Motorola 68K series chip. It's an emulator based around the Motorola 68K. And I was kind of hoping that the Gopher 2 would have the same chip in it because I like the idea of flashing it and putting my own binaries on there.
Hmm.
Maybe emulate an Amiga or virtual box an Amiga on there because it has the Motorola. But what I've read since is that the Gopher 2 actually is a complete rebuild using different components and that it doesn't have the Motorola in it anymore. But I read that on a forum, so I don't know how much truth is in it. Now, the simple fact is I cannot find much information about this device at all. It's been discontinued now, and nobody seems to have a spec or any knowledge on how to flash it. Just no information. And so part of me is just thinking, well, keep it as an emulator. It does a good job of emulating these machines. Just keep it as a toy. So maybe I'm not going to mess with it if I can't find the information to mess with it. And sorry, your question about it was.
I was just gonna ask if you brought it and what was going on with it, what you found out about it. But
That's
you
it.
can always open it up and look and see what's inside of it, I guess.
Well, yeah, I considered that. The other thing is that my son, I've bought him a Nintendo Switch. But I don't want to give that to him until I've charged it and made loaded games onto it that he can play, because I don't want him to have the disappointment of receiving a machine that's not ready to use,
Right.
and
Yeah.
for me to have the headache of listening to his disappointment of the machine can't use. So I gave him the Gopher.
Hey, Sarah. We're streaming, but you're welcome to come in. No, you're fine. Come on in. We're just like hanging out and chatting on a stream, just like,
I'm messing up your dad's kits. So yeah.
Well, I guess I'll ask the entire stream. Is it my rent from Mia on your account?
rent it on my account.
Yes.
Which account?
It's $4.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, you totally should have sent that out to the stream.
Oh, wait, we should ask. Let's do a
It needs a
poll.
vote. Mia.
The poll should know that I am making a cake and you will get some.
Oh, well then, yeah, definitely.
Yay! It's gonna be completely homemade, even with the frosting.
Nice.
It's gonna be so yummy.
So I like this thing, but it keeps going lower and lower and lower. How long does the rental good for?
I don't know, but I'll check. I think Mom probably wanna watch it.
I was gonna say I want to watch it too.
Okay, I'll look.
All right, cool.
Do you have an appropriate capture card?
I do
I
actually.
do not recommend pirating anything.
Well, there's time shifting is technically. Let me just go on and rent it for you.
I love you. Have fun.
Love you too.
1.5. Brown, green, black, brown.
So Craig and Gwen are talking, or Craig, not Craig, Craig and Glenn talking about how they use multimeters too because it's so much more reliable.
Right.
Glenn's saying with the upcoming Stream Deck from Valve, which packs an AMD Zen 2 APU and quite open, you'll get quite powerful dockable handheld for $399. Although I was talking with my sons today about that, and if you look at Valve's track record on hardware, I would not be pre-ordering anything by Valve. I mean, a lot of the stuff's come out pretty good, and their VR headset apparently is quite good now. But when it first shipped, most of the stuff is not very good. So
I was considering, because I wanted to do a couple of different projects, getting a hold of a good small screen that's actually capable of a fair resolution, and a controller to drive it, and then the actual MCU and everything else. It can be quite a challenging project to find all of the right bits to go together. But existing handhelds have it, right?
Yep.
So they're
Yep.
already set up. And some of the older handhelds, like the Sony's PSP and PS Vita,
yeah,
they have good resolution and good ergonomics. They were decent machines in their day. It might be worth obtaining some of those and trying to hack them.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to, do I want to do that hacking, or do I want to find somebody that's already hacked a machine and knows how to go do it? But I'm talking about machines that you can pick up at thrift stores for $40 and $50 just to have a mess and a hack around with.
I need to go thrifting more. Honestly, I don't, and I don't. When I've gone, I've not seen anything interesting. So
Well, I do also call I use the word thrift store for pawn stores because my pronunciation apparently upsets Americans.
for
Um,
pawn stores.
stores.
Oh, yeah, your pronunciation. I'm like, whoa, Craig.
Right. And yeah, sorry, palm. I can't do it. Like I just sound like I have a speech impediment or something. So what am I doing here? So anyways, that I use the same term for both because you can get some pretty cheap older tech.
Yeah.
Am I misusing resistor?
I'm sure.
What am I doing wrong?
That didn't work.
Uh, all right, well, the multimeter is not reading anything at this point. I've got infinite resistance apparently, so
Here's my multimeter.
that's fun.
We'll try that one.
Yeah, let's give that a shot. I just got done saying, yeah, this multimeter works. Yeah. All right. And you're set high enough that I should be able to. No, yours says it's infinite too. So I've got some resistors here with apparently infinite resistance. What
is
could they be?
Is it set to sensitive enough?
Let's put it down here because it should be 1.5K. So if I put it on 20K, we should be good there.
It's potentially the resistor is bad.
Yep. Well, I've got infinite resistance on each of those resistors. Excellent. Let me make sure 1.5K. Yeah. I'm going to need a couple of 1.5K resistors, Jim.
All right, I will go look. I'm back.
Thank you. I'm just going to make sure that I'm, not getting it wrong. Bad resistors, or maybe I got something that's much higher resistance than I thought and got the color codes wrong. I'm going to check. Brown, green, black. Brown, green, black, something. Let's see if I have anything similar to it. I only need one of these, so maybe this is it. There we go. That's a 1.5. I was looking at the wrong component, but it appeared to have infinite resistance, and at that size, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'm just going to put those out of the way. Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
I think I might have been misreading it.
Misreading
the resistor. I mean, to be honest, I still shouldn't have had infinite resistance on a resistor, but
Well, but depending on your scale, infinite is
right. But I juggled it about some. Anyhow, let me put in resistor 38. Can I say again that I have no idea what I'm doing here? So 38.
So yeah, what are we doing here? Someone was asking. Craig is building a scope, a logic scope, and I'm building a 4-bit adder, I think, or something. I don't remember.
Couple of kits.
Couple kits.
I mean, really not This wasn't planned. This was a off the cuff. Let's just chat and build some kits.
Well, it's like this could be fun. Let's see if this is fun, and we'll stream it. And then if people want to chat with us while we stream, so I do have someone's asking if I have any Arduinos. This has got a Nano in here that I'm using.
What I actually have I have a stash of. I don't have them with me, but I have a stash of the. Is it the 328, the Atmega 328 chip that's on the Arduino Uno?
Oh, really?
I have a stash of those because so for the balloon projects I bought a bulk order of them, and they come without the Arduino bootloader. And then I bought two kits which are programmers to put the bootloaders or some other code on them.
Nice.
And I built all that up, and I still have most of those parts. The main reason was I didn't want to fly in the balloon. I wanted to engineer a telemetry circuit that wasn't an Arduino Uno with a shield or a hat on it. I
Right.
wanted to
Yeah.
actually
You don't
put
need
it
the whole
in-
thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to put it in the board and to be able to put together several of them. So I have those, and
That'd be
then
fun.
most everything that I'm thinking about doing for my current projects involve Raspberry Pi Zero.
Did you get some? Oh, Raspberry Pi Zero. I was thinking the Raspberry Pi. What is the Raspberry Pi microcontroller one called? It's the Raspberry Pi Micro, the one that they just introduced. That's like a Arduino type.
I didn't know that they did just introduce one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in the Zero and the Zero W, the wireless,
Yep.
the wireless chip for little cluster projects and things like digital signal processing and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
that's about all I know about these chips.
Yeah. So Raspberry Pi. Well, actually, maybe even a full year ago now. I don't know. 6 months ago, maybe introduced a new board that's like a like an Arduino type
Right.
microcontroller. Pico, Raspberry Pi Pico. Glenn and
So is that because I watched that YouTube channel that you recommended to me, and the guy basically just always uses Teetsies for every project,
oh yeah.
and did a video about the reasons why.
Uh-huh.
So that would be something competing with the Pico, right? The
Yeah.
Teetsy.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I actually said before we started the stream, most of my electronics projects don't actually go ahead now anyway, because when I have the time to do them between being full-time employed and being a dad, um, I think to myself, what can I do the most of in that time? And the answer is always coding. I can always do more coding in the available time slot than I could do soldering, as you can see with the speed I'm going through these resistors.
Yep. Well, and that's why part of why I thought it would be fun to do this is because it's if I tell you to come over here, then we both have to do something that we wouldn't normally otherwise be doing.
Right.
Of course, I'd like to actually get these projects done, but I don't know if we'll get them done today or not.
I've started not buying projects. You buy all these components with every intention, and they lay on a shelf for several months or years. I've started not buying projects anymore. I just have got to that point where I'm saying, hey, I'm just not going to do this. As excited as I am to do it, it's not going to happen. So
And the Raspberry Pi Pico is supported in Visvino, which if you're doing Arduino projects, you're not using Visvino, I highly recommend it.
yeah, because Arduino for Arduino is essentially a capable AP IDE with libraries to help you write stuff and a full development suite, whereas the Arduino sketch tool thing that comes with Arduino is a notepad.
Yeah, it's a text editor. Yep.
Ugh, how can resistors be giving me so much trouble?
Oh, that was a mess.
Oh, I think you've given me the wrong parts bin. It's got to be that.
I
It
gave you
can't
the
be
wrong
me.
first bit.
Can't be me. You must have given me the wrong parts bin.
It must be.
Right. Ah, found it. So the resistors that I didn't think were going to work were actually 2M. What's M?
Mega.
Well, that's probably why they look like they were infinite on the
Yeah.
on the scopes.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to put
The
those.
scope will go up to M, see? I think.
2000K is M. Oh, 200M. Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. Let's see what we got on here then. So these.
So Glenn's saying the Teensy's got a base clock of 600 megahertz, the TC 4.1. It could be overclocked to 1 gigahertz. And it's tiny little
Oh,
package.
did that get warm? Sorry, the TNC can be overclocked.
To 1 gigahertz. It's pretty amazing if you think about it. The amount of
I'm going to ask a favor of you.
Yeah.
I don't know what values those are. And you were saying it's pretty amazing.
the amount of computing power you can get in these little microcontrollers.
Right. Now go ahead and test them. See if you can tell me what values they are.
Okay.
Because color code wise, they're right. They should be 2M.
Okay, you're on DC voltage now.
Did I step up too far?
Yeah. This does not go up high enough. It does not have as 2000K, which would be not should be. What is it supposed to be?
No, 2 mega.
Yeah. So it's 2000 times 2000K. Yeah, so it's 2 mega. Yep.
Okay, cool. It's
you
me.
grab it and look at it.
No, I'm now understanding where I'm going wrong. It's me. I haven't done this in so long.
That's fine.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Can you believe I used to design circuits? Not professionally though. 2N.
I love is how often I've been like trying to figure out how to do something with Delphi and then find I did a webinar on it. I'm like, wait, what?
Oh, tell me about it. I've been reading an answer. So I Google it. I'm trying to figure out how to do X, and I'm reading an answer, and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, I do remember how to do this. It does make sense." And then I realize that I'm reading my own words that have been copied from my blog to somebody else's blog. Yeah.
Boyan just said, remember when testing mega ohms that your skin resistance will interfere
Well,
with that.
But so I did hobby electronics as a kid, and in college I did a course on digital electronics, which involved a lot of patterns as well. And I remember, silly things like being made to go through the codes and memorize them, but of course I haven't used those in forever. And things like building your own transformer. So we sat there winding wire around a Ferris core and all that kind of stuff. But that's about as much memory as I have of that, bearing in mind that my college days were over 20 years ago. Let's say 25 years ish ago. So I've really not used much of that knowledge since, and where I have used it, I've got Google to reference.
Yeah.
R2 and R4. Let's get this right.
We should build Skynet. We don't know what to build today. Oh, that's a great idea.
Well, Jim enticed me over on the promise of building a 6502 base system.
Eventually, yeah, I do have the stuff for that.
And that's something I'm very interested in. Mainly because I've written my own 6502 assembler and disassembler quite recently and would like to put them to use. But also, it's a chip that I have a nostalgia for. So, R4, where are you?
That's definitely something we're not going to get done in a couple days. So,
Right. You might be surprised how much you get done on a system like that because it may be bigger discrete components, maybe clearer. There is one resistor which I may just redo. It's incredibly picky of me. The joints look fine, but it's laying slightly diagonally along the diagram, and my brain looks at that and says, "I want to do that better." So, it will work, so I should not modify it yet.
I'm really liking this magnifying light thing here.
Yeah, I'm slightly envious. Only slightly. The tool I have is working. It's just a really old cheap. I mean, this thing that's been in my kit for 20 odd years. Back when you first got it, it was like, oh, how did we manage without this? Now it's like, this is the cheapest, nastiest tool.
I have those helping hands over there, right here.
Yeah, I had a couple just like that as well.
Nope, it's not in the camera. It's not in the scene, but it's this cheaper one than the one you got. I don't know if that solder joint's good or not.
This one's looking a little poorly. I'm going to go back in. A little too much solder on it, but I'm bringing up the lead and cut the lead off.
All of mine have too much solder on them.
But so the problem when you have too much solder, as I found, is if you get a ball, you can very easily get a dry joint because it's balled up over the socket.
Right.
If you have too much solder, it can look like a ball from top down, and so you kind of have to correct it, even if it would otherwise not be a dry joint, because you need to know that it's going to connect. So I think I'm going to ignore Glenn's advice and put the temperature up on my soldering iron at this point, because I clearly was doing better with a higher temperature. I think this board just has better absorbent properties because I'm having to hold the heat on there for longer to do the transfer to the pad. And okay, it's been a long time since I've done projects, but I've done plenty of soldering in my time, and I've given tips on soldering. So the job I'm doing, I'm not exactly proud of. All right.
Yeah, crocodile probes would be useful. I have some in the room. I need to grab those for using the multimeter. I think Asus notebook or something. So yeah, my Chromebook is, I think it's an Asus. Yeah, it's an Asus Chromebook.
Right.
Yomaz just jumped in and said, "Good night. What's the aim here now?" So Craig and I are just doing some random electronic soldering stuff here, just as a way to hang out. And
That's the camera.
that's the camera there.
Just soldering some pads up. I am going to
random questions if anybody's got anything.
I'm going to take a 2-minute.
All right.
I'll be back. Oh, and as I leave, I'm going to show off my Craig now comes with a hat. So
Can't see it. There you go. There you
you
go. Craig now comes
Craig
in.
now comes with a hat. This is actually not the final hat. I'm planning to replace it. This is my sounding hat. But Craig now comes with a hat.
Not your final form. All right, those headers are soldered on. So now let's start working on here. Oh, come on, fit now. All right, there we go. So let's see. Any questions here? Trying to keep an eye on the chat if there's anybody got any questions or anything. But yeah, we're just doing some random stuff, although we're willing to do questions for whatever. If anybody's got any random questions that you can't find on Google or just want to get my opinion on something, I'm happy to do that. So now I'm soldering up a headers on a nano to attaching it to this other board here. What thing is the temperature? Soldering iron temperature is highly dependent on the gauge of the solder you're using. Some spools have recommended temp written on them. Oh, that's true. This spool does not have the recommended temperature, but it does have what it is. So we could probably look it up. Yeah, I'm sure it's one of those things you can just adjust it as you go, right? If it's not warm enough, make it warmer. So Glenn says it depends on the solder and the gauge of your solder and stuff like that. There's lots of dependencies on your temperature.
Temp, yeah. I think so. I know the basics. You want to get the heat on. Basically, solder will flow to where the heat is. Not defying gravity, but otherwise. And so if you get the heat there, it should be a good, clean in and out joint. That's not what I'm getting here. So I'm up at 400 and we'll see how much I burn. All right, what do I want next? 100 and 180.
There we go. So what are you up to tonight, Glenn? Or I guess it's probably morning for you, huh? Glenn was trying to help me find a little NAS I could set up here. My old one, the one I built from an old computer, died. No drinks, no snacks, no music, no smokes. See, I got my drink down here. It's just not in right.
Well,
Big mug.
in terms of smokes, that's where I just disappeared to. Not real smokes, but electronic e-cigarette. So that's my 180s.
I should have got snacks though. Actually, Sarah's gonna bring us cake apparently at some point. My daughter.
That'd be good.
Oh, I gotta. Yeah, we can get down here.
If you hear a growling noise and neither of us are speaking, you'll know what that is. R7 and 36. R7 should be over here somewhere. See, I find with these, when you push the component in, I know a lot of people like to do, you push one leg in and then have it kind of standing and the other leg come down. I like to get them lying down flat, but they don't always cooperate with that.
I forgot really that I never got that stream from my daughter, so. There it is. I was thinking it would be fun. I was just actually it was Glenn. He sent me this Johnny Mnemonic hackers GIF combined GIF.
Uh-huh.
And I was thinking, it'd be fun is to watch those old really old
Hacker movie.
hacker movies.
But that actually we could also do some streaming of that. Come and hang with us while we watch an old hacker movie.
That would be fun.
With singing ships and flying around. I just put from the Hackers movie. They've got when they start working on the Gibson system, and it's all flying around buildings and all that kind of stuff. So I just found a screensaver that is effectively that. And a wallpaper, animated wallpaper, not a screensaver. And I put it on my machine, and it lasted, I think, 5 or 8 minutes before I was annoyed by the animation. It got rid of it. Yeah, I wouldn't want my computer doing that. And then there's my absolute favorite from when I was a kid, the original Jurassic Park. I think it was the original. I don't think it was a remake. The girl walks in and says, "I know this. It's
Yeah.
Unix." And
Yep.
I look at the screen. I'm like, "That is not Unix."
Well, apparently there is like there's lots of alternative
UIs.
UIs for it, and that's one of them.
That's a good excuse. That was not Unix.
So Glenn says he's working on a couple blog posts about Azure function apps in Delphi. Oh, that's so cool. And writing some demos and stuff. Cool, cool.
I just finished reworking my threading system again. Keep having to rework that stupid thing because I discovered I keep my code compatible with Delphi and Lazarus. I discovered the Free Pascal compiler's stack checking is incompatible with what they refer to as external threads, which basically means threads created in any external library. Maybe Boyan will know more about this. So I tried turning off stack checking, and that didn't seem to work. I couldn't, no matter what I did, I couldn't get threading to work with my own binding to pthreads. So basically, that's how I was trying to implement it. Binding, I created my own translation of the functions I needed, create, join, and all the rest of it. And I just couldn't get it working. So I switched it back to the RTL's threads, and that made it all work. But Free Pascal shipped with a pthread unit. So I'm kind of confused as to how how I got into such a mess with it. So I just rewrote it all, and I'm using the RTL threading functions on the Free Pascal side, but on the Delphi side, the stack checking is obviously not the same. And so I'm still using the pthreads and Windows API threads directly. And that's all working. But what that's enabled me to do now is get the Apache module that I was working on running properly. So I have an Apache module which implements a WebSocket, and it forwards that WebSocket connection over TCP to my application. The problem I was having is that my application, because the threads wasn't working properly, I couldn't run a blocking socket effectively without burning CPU cycles. So I'm now able to do that, and I've had that code in. So the two components, the WebSocket and the threading side of things, I've had those two components ready now for about 2 weeks, I want to say. I still haven't got back to actually connecting them together. I've been working on stuff for my YouTube channel instead because I kind of owed it to my YouTube channel to get those done. So.
Yeah, I saw you just pull your YouTube virtual stream or virtual machine videos up.
The virtual machine videos, yeah. So I've got a lot of other stuff that I'm interested in putting out, but I started the virtual CPU project, and it's a very technical video series, and I kind of want to do some higher level stuff for the channel, but I feel I owe it to the people watching that series to keep the detail in as it is. So I just put out 3 videos, 2 of which were effectively a code review and watch me code, which, watching someone code for an hour is a little bit arduous, no matter who you're watching. So yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I hope they're received well by the people watching that series, but I'm planning to put some stuff out that's a little bit less detailed codey. I think a couple of things I'm thinking of is I've recorded about 20 hours of myself making a 3D renderer that doesn't, 3D rendering without a 3D API. So literally rasterizing the graphics. I think that would make an interesting video.
Yeah.
And then also writing an operating system kernel. is not as difficult as most people think. It's actually quite an easy thing to do once you get the technical details to get it started. So I'm thinking of doing one of those. And one of the YouTubers who I'm sorry I can't name because I'm blanking, I'm spacing on it, but one of the YouTubers I follow recently put out a video where he made an operating system from scratch, an operating system kernel, which was designed to do nothing but play Tetris.
Oh, I saw that one.
Right. And I thought, well, that's actually a really fun project. And he did it using the legacy boot block and legacy master boot record instead of using what I call it UFI, you know, the UFI
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
So instead of using the UFI boot, but UFI boot actually is pretty straightforward to do. I've never actually tried this, but I've read all the material surrounding how you do it. And effectively, what you need is a PE format, Microsoft's portable executable format executable, and that is your boot sector, I guess. The loader loads that. And making a PE format file, you can do. There's a couple of people that have done it on Google. You can do using just the NASM assembler and literally hard code the PE file.
Right, right.
Well, that would be perfect for ensuring the memory page, you know, paginated memory is set up and getting you up and running. Doing a little NASM booter would work very well. So I've considered doing that as well. I've got a few fun little ideas for it, but I do want to complete some of my commitments first, and the WebSocket stuff also will help me to complete out the course that we all did, that we all got online for and did the Apocalypse cards. I really want to complete that example. I did a rework of it, threw a rework of it together using a WebSocket, and it works. You know, I was the one that resisted WebSockets in that original case, but it actually works really well. And I have that working, but I had a bug in it because my processor has so many cores. I didn't notice it was pegging one of those cores at 100% reading the input. So the whole new WebSocket implementation I've done would resolve that issue, and that's why I had to get the threading right, because I want the threads to effectively be descheduled or go to sleep rather than sit there spinning.
Well, I've soldered two of my pins together.
I was just looking over at you as I was talking and thinking, I hope you know how to figure that out. So
I will figure it out.
you know what? Actually, I have a tool for you.
Oh, you have that solder sucker?
Yeah. It's not the fun one. I'd have to plug that all in, but
Actually, I have one in the room that's reflective one.
actually, should we try the other tool? I'd have to unplug my soldering iron.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. Okay, where am I up to? 180, 470. Yellow, violet, black, black is a 470, is it?
I saw you, Glenn, did that webinar. I think you went into hopefully the Azure function apps in Delphi. I definitely need to go check that out actually, because that's something I was looking at. Amazon's, I think they call it Lambda, which everybody's got. Google's got a Lambda now too, which does something totally different than Amazon's Lambda. Forgot anything? Everybody you reuse terms that sound cool, and then all of a sudden it's like, let's had a meeting before you decided to reuse them. It's like Microsoft's holograms. It's like holograms are an actual technical term for
Actual
doing
thing.
something. Yeah, there we go. I got it. I think I like this lens thing, but I'm not sure the term for it, but the looking through it with both eyes, it's confusing. If I close one eye, it works a lot better because
Right.
I'm getting two different
The focal points.
focal points are
Yeah.
different.
So I think with those things, you're not supposed to look through them with two eyes, is the point.
Yeah, probably.
I know they say that when you're using a microscope, particularly an electronics microscope, microscope, you're supposed to put your eye to the reticle, but then do not close your other eye. You let your brain focus in on that eye that you're interested in, because if you close the other eye, it apparently changes the shape of the one you've still got open. and messes up your whatever. I don't know. That's how you're supposed to use it.
Makes sense.
28, 28, 28. Where the heck is R28? So they got all these SMD components are pre-soldered for you, which is great. They could have just done the resistors for me.
It's not a kit.
I know, I know.
You don't have to assemble that kit if you don't want to. You want to do something else?
No, I'm good. I'm complaining because it helps.
I know. It was solder all over the place.
Well, I can't find this 28. There's 29. And you'd think they'd keep 28 near 29.
You'd think. Your little solder ball that now hopped up here. There we go.
Oh, you got it.
Boyan was saying solid core is a great method for solid wick, solder wick.
Solder
Removing
wick,
solder.
yeah.
Yeah. Randy just joined from Minnesota. Hey, Randy.
I don't think I have any. Is that Randy? Randy?
Randy Tapson.
Yeah. Hey, Randy. Been a while.
Goodwick is what Glenn says is recommended by Louis Rossman.
Right. So I have some. I don't think I brought it with me.
Yeah. Yilmaz says he thought we were building an ARM board to run Delphi C++ builder apps with Windows 11 and Rad Studio later. So this is just our warm-up session.
Yeah, we're warming up right now. In about 2 hours' time, we're going to start building an ARM board from scratch.
Right.
Design it on the computer, CNC mill it. Kidding. Yeah. Print out the silk screens. We've got a whole silk screen printing shop out back here. Where
So yeah, I would like to build. I mean, I don't know. I like the idea of doing some more interesting project live streams, but I thought this would be an easy thing to try out and see if it works, see if people watch it, and see if we enjoy it, and figure out the technical issues like the original breaking the stream and have to start a new one.
right, yeah, that was that lesson learned, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I found it really frustrating when they changed the interface. It used to be that with YouTube, you got one key, and that was your key. You plug that into OBS or whatever other software you're using, and you're good to go for any video. You start and stop it whenever you like. And then it was probably about 18 months, 24 months ago that they changed the interface, and you get a different key for every stream. And I guess they figure that's more secure because RTMP is not exactly the most secure protocol. But the UI is just confusing. Like finding the key is a challenge. And then to discover that if you create the appointment from your cell phone, it won't even give you a key. You can only stream from your cell phone if you create the appointment from the cell phone. But that's just another, why does the UI not make that obvious? You know, why is the thing not listed? So it's kind of frustrating to get set up because it just, things keep changing on you. But I'm glad that I learned that from you because if I do streaming again, which I haven't done in quite a while now, that will be there. I am losing my mind trying to find R28.
You mean to look at it?
Yeah, but I'm kind of nervous that you'll spot it right away and then I'll be embarrassed.
I promise to take extra long if I do spot it right away.
You can see where R28 is on there.
Yeah, is that there? Doesn't. I was trying to help my friend of mine install some new case fans, and we were trying to couldn't find. It took us a while to find the schematics for his board, for his motherboard, and then took a while to find the connectors. It turned out the board we were looking at had the wrong. There's R29,
Found out 29 half an hour ago.
R39, 37, R28.
No.
Yeah, it's right there.
And it really is quite near R29. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
it's the way it's sitting there. It's not obvious.
Yeah, and I think that the scale of it as well with my eyes, the 8s and 6s are looking kind of similar. So
Yep.
thank you. All right, I can go ahead and solder that in. And where is now I've got to find 40, but I'll find it.
Sure. Sometimes you just need to give your eyes a break from staring at those things too.
Yeah.
Actually,
Gotcha.
I do have some music that we could do. So the trick with music is it's got to be stream safe music, and I actually got a thing that's stream safe music, but you have to add this to the description. You have to add the license key for music. It found out per track, which is annoying, but it's pretty good music. It's not like Billboard top 40s, but I found I could find music I enjoyed listening to on it.
Well, that's up to the people watching. I'm comfortable, but I did learn something about YouTube. YouTube changes just yesterday or the day before when I uploaded those videos.
Yeah.
They do a check now, a pre-check.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a fantastic feature.
it
Like
is.
that, I've only had I think 2 hits on. One of them was when I gave a video to you, and you had a hit on it as well.
Yeah,
But yeah, the fact that they'll check in advance and you can resolve that before publishing.
because once it's live, you hate to break the the link.
Right. What I wish they would do is let you upload a replacement video.
Yeah, and it's like Vimeo and most other channels let you do that.
Right. So, you put a video up, and because they don't let you replace the video, and you can't replace the audio unless you're replacing the audio with something from their library, which are backing tracks.
Yep.
So if you put a video up and it's say, oh, I forgot to mix it down to mono, so the channel is directional and you're only getting sound from one side.
Yep.
Well, then you get people saying, I can't hear anything when I play this video because they've only got one-sided audio. So yeah, to be able to replace that with the exact same video but correctly mixed. Or I've got one up there right now, which is how the stack works, an illustration of the stack. And one of the values, when I pull the values back out of the stack, one of the values I got incorrect, and I had to put the errata in the description. But I don't want to lose the analytics and data from having uploaded the video. So I haven't uploaded the corrected video, and I think I've actually since lost the source files that I made it from anyway. But yeah, just being able to replace those videos with fixes without losing your analytics.
Yeah, and they used to have where you could put call outs anywhere in the video.
Mm-hmm.
No, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, I wish you could do those, but I guess the fear would be you upload something, it goes through its copyright checks or whatever, and then you upload a replacement which violates them or something like that.
Well, no, because they could just always recheck it.
They
So
just
that's,
recheck, yeah.
I don't know. I think
It almost seems like the obvious missing feature to me to be able to replace the video content.
that they're trying to go for this idea that it's a canonical URL, and that if that URL points to, this video, that you can't later then replace it with a Rickroll video,
Right.
and say, I got ya, because then you're changing the
content.
the content, you're changing the index. So I think that's their logic behind it, honestly, but I don't know. I agree, it's very frustrating because I've been hit with it a few times. Although you can actually go in and cut parts out now, which is nice if you need to.
Oh, you can. Yeah, you can do trimming, put pieces away.
I don't know if you can cut out of the middle of it or not. I would assume you can. I've never really used it to cut off like the beginning or the end.
Okay, so I'm actually, I remember missing a resistor because I couldn't find it before. So I'm going to do a quick check now and see if I can find it because I've gone through the whole being able to see the colors thing.
Actually, I have a few other live streams I want to start doing too on the channel here, that are definitely more coding related. But I got to figure out some of the logistics, and so I figured this would be a good way to practice things and make mistakes when it's not anything anybody cares about.
Okay, I think the band I'm looking for is hidden. But let's just test it. It should be a 200K.
Although, you know, the fact that we had to restart this, so many times I've seen other streams, other YouTubers that have got, you know, hundreds of times more followers than I do, or the YouTube Embarcadero channel does. They do the same thing, do a live stream, and you're like, wow,
Right.
jump on it,
Did
and
you
it's
spell
like,
yourself?
I got a piece of solder dropped to my finger.
Ouch.
Yep, too much solder. And you jump on it, and it's like, this stream has ended, and it's like, you get a notification, and we started a new stream.
That's another thing. Being able to restart that would be a nice thing. You know, go
Yeah.
back into the same. Yeah.
Yep.
There's a few features that are a bit iffy. You doing all right? Do you need some
I could throw in
butter or something?
butter. Like the exact opposite of what you're supposed to put out, right?
Something like that. Yeah, I think it was I think there was like a wives' tale that butter would help fix it, and it was determined that that's making it worse.
Yeah.
All right, what color code am I looking for? Brown, black, orange.
Come on. Where is it?
These is it? No.
I just don't think that's the best lens. It's a little bit different.
100s.
There we go. Let's try this there. On the light now. This thing's got lights on it, but they're terrible.
Okay, so that's yeah, that's about right. $14.60.
There we go. It goes all good.
So
Just a tiny blip in there. Just a tiny spot.
you're still alive?
Yeah, it's still alive.
Okay. You don't need rushing to the hospital.
No.
You sure? Because you were telling me about a movie earlier.
I know, right?
There it is. Okay, 3 more. Ready to go. Yeah. Bend these at the same pitch. Yes. Yep, my joints are getting better since I turned the temperature up. So it definitely was temperature. I can see some of the older joints looking like something from a B movie. And the new ones looking better behind them. I can go back and tidy up anything that doesn't look quite right at the end. Sharing my theory the other day. Here's my theory. It's not exactly a revelation or anything, but my theory is that whenever you see a dragon or a dragon-like alien in a movie or a TV show, they've based the motion and predatory behavior specifically on cats. If you look at the aliens movies, they all move like cats. They all kind of pause before pouncing in predation. Look at the dragons in Game of Thrones; they behave in much the same way. And I think it's just because when we think of predators, the first ones that come to mind tend to be the ones that we know as pets. You know, maybe sharks will come second.
Yeah.
I think that that's helping people to not like cats. You know, a lot of people don't like them.
I mean, cats are very much predators for sure.
Oh yeah, well they are both prey and predators. They're kind of unusual in that way. They're both prey and predators, which is why you'll find them hiding in boxes 1 minute and pouncing the next. You know,
House cats, yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, even big cats they're less prey than predators, but they'll even climb and hide. Although of the large cats, I think there's only one that can actually retract their claws, and I want to say it's the jaguar that can retract its claws, but the others are unable
Yeah.
to.
I didn't know that.
They're all like, if you look at a lion or whatever, it's like a pads with, you know, just like a dog's claw basically.
Yeah. Huh.
That one resistor that I put in skill with, I'm leaving it. I'm leaving it alone.
Uh-huh.
It's just irritating. Okay, how many resistors do I have left? Black, black. Paranoid black, black, that's the one. And it's supposed to be a 120R. So what's this R now? I'm guessing that's ohms. I can tell now because I found them.
Is it 0.8 or 1.0 solder, Craig?
What you've got is,
Or Glenn's asking.
I think what you've got is 0.8. It should,
Mine's 0.8, yeah.
it should be on the reel. I handed you a reel. You're using your own now?
No, this is the one you get.
Okay.
0.8.
And mine is finer.
Yours is finer?
I don't know exactly what because this is loose solder that I've got hanging around, but it's finer than that.
I'm going to go to the 4-bit adder.
Okay, so I've confirmed where they say R, they mean ohms.
Okay.
That's, I guess, I mean, I kind of suspected that's what it was anyway, because, you know, don't have the ohm symbol in my font, so I'm using an R, right? But just wanted to confirm that that's right. Right, so that was the red backpack. I'm sure I got the right thing. Yes, but I don't have 3 of them. No. We did. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, 8.
We did a one year. My family got together and did a what we did. We ended up like a Christmas party, and we like sang some Christmas carols together as a family.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some people that couldn't make it, so I recorded it and put them on YouTube. And it was just it was it was an unlisted video, and so it wasn't like anything I was planning to share with anybody. Get a copyright strike on my family singing Christmas carols together. And I'm like, what the? So I challenged it. I'm like, no.
There was the whole, it's quite famous, they open sourced or released the rights on Happy Birthday, didn't they?
Did they?
Yeah, there was a big, I say big, a public case about it. They opened the rights on it. By the way, for anybody who's joined since we said so, this is an Ask Me Anything. You can ask us questions as well. You don't have to just sit watching us soldering.
Yep, and we'll try and answer them. Like Glenn just asked if it's 0.0 or 1.0 solder, so that was Glenn's one question he gets to ask.
And that's it. You get one. That's your strike. Eight.
And it doesn't have to be related to what we're doing or whatever. And I'm sure I probably have an IDE running here someplace. If you're like, my code doesn't compile, then I'll just. That would be terrible.
I get that. I have to turn off features of. I have to literally turn off communications features now to avoid, like when I'm not available to respond. I have to literally turn those features off because otherwise I will get questions like 24/7 at this point. 12 and 13 are done. I'm sure I want 8. It's just finding it. And I'm sure you have the same. In fact, I have messaged you at just about all hours of the day and never waited more than a few minutes for a response. So I know you don't sleep.
No, I don't. Not sleep regularly.
Which is for for humans is quite rare, and I'm not sure you're human.
I accused David I of being a robot because that guy was crazy. Well, not crazy in the bad way, crazy in the good way. I mean, just doing all sorts of stuff. Amazing what he would do. Still does a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, what's he up to these days?
He's retired now. Moved to I can't remember what city is, Oregon, Ashland, Oregon, or something like that. Which is interesting because I never thought he would be away from the ocean, but he's doing working on some C++ stuff, C++ Builder, just because there are a lot more Delphi coverage than C++ Builder coverage, so he's working on that. I think he's going to be doing some content during our Learn to Code summer camp that's coming up.
Oh, cool.
And hopefully we'll see him at the Desktop First Summit that's also coming up, which I don't think I've announced on the live stream yet or on the website, but that'll be showing up in the near future as well.
Fun stuff.
Yeah.
I'll be trying to be present, but I can't make promises with my schedule right now because I do work full time. Yeah, it's in the day. This last resistor is hiding again. It doesn't want me to find it. Found it.
Ashland, Oregon. Yep. Is that what I don't know what I said. Ashland, Oregon is where David I is living now.
All right. Still wear tie-dye everywhere.
Yep, he does. I think his skin's tie-dyed, to be honest.
Right. Tattooed on.
Tattooed on. Yeah, that was one thing after coming to work at Embarcadero that I discovered that David I really is one of the nicest people ever.
Right.
You know, he just genuinely is. Because I always kind of wondered that, and he really is just an amazing guy.
Yeah, man.
Yilmaz, I have a question. Dates back to university. When did you graduate and what was the lessons you liked? What was your graduate degree if it's not private much? And how did you jump to programming?
Hmm. You want to roll with that first?
I will roll with that first. I did not attend college in a real capacity. I took a couple classes. That's really it. Um, I graduated high school in '92. I did take an AP computer science class in high school, although I was the guy in the class everybody asked the questions of. The math teacher was teaching it. She did not know much about computers. Typically, if someone asked her a question, the way she would answer it would be to give them the teacher's manual so they could go type the code in from the teacher's manual. Um, so I had I got my parents got me a Commodore VIC 20 when I was quite young and just started programming on that and knew that's what I wanted to do. Didn't know what that job looked like, but I knew that was going to be something to do with that. And I've been doing programming ever since. So I did some like small projects for people and stuff, like someone my dad knows or works with, something like that. I'd go set up write some little programs for him or something like that. And then I ran a BBS for a while and I wrote some software that I like shareware that I put up on the BBS and software I used to help run my BBS and stuff like that. Through high school and such, but never really got hired as a programmer, like legit. That wasn't like somebody my dad knew.
Uh-huh.
Then I got a job at Micron Computer. So Micron Technologies is a big company here in Idaho that they're actually like one of the top memory chip manufacturers in the world, happens to be based in Idaho. And they had a subsidiary called Micron Computer that made, or Micron PC, they had a couple different names, they changed their name a couple times, that made computers. And so I got a job there in tech support. And from there, I moved into engineering to do software development. And that's kind of when I got my uh, professional start in software development,
Mhm.
and then got hired at a company to write database software in Delphi. So, and then went from there.
My story, by the way, I am definitely, when I was searching around for resistors at the beginning, couldn't find them. I'm correct that they are just not in the kit. Oh no, 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 no! Found them. They were hiding, hiding. Okay.
Hiding on the resistor reference card.
Exactly, right there, big in the obvious place. So my story is pretty much the same thing. I am technically completely unqualified at what I do. My experience is my qualification. I don't have academic qualifications. So I graduated what you would call high school in '95, and I went to what in the UK we call college, but that is not to be confused with university because we have the distinction between the two in the UK. I believe in the States, college and university are the same thing.
And so they use them interchangeably, but sometimes they can be. So you might have like community college
Right.
might give you a 2-year degree, maybe a bachelor's, but usually it's not as well respected as something you might get from a
From a
university.
university, right? So essentially, in the UK, university is kind of a college is a stepping stone to university. It's like additional high school, but with a specialized course.
But sometimes they are interchangeable as well.
Right. Well, so there's technical colleges are very often actually considered universities, but yeah. So I basically bounced between three of these colleges. I got into a little bit of trouble at one of them because I accessed things on their network that I wasn't supposed to.
Well, if I remember correctly, you told me the teacher kind of challenged you to do it or something.
Yeah, so the teacher issued a challenge. Some of the kids in the class were being should we say, bullish, gesturing at the teacher and saying, "I'm going to hack your network." And the teacher essentially said, back in 1995, "Oh, we have novel networks. It's the industry standard in security. If you kids could hack it, I'll buy you a Mars bar." And so the following morning, I told him his password, and managed to find my way in. I won't go into detail about how I did that, but it was actually trivial. So I got into a little bit of trouble there and left that college and went to a second college. And in the morning, I sat down and I adjusted my autoexec.bat on Windows to set the screen resolution, because the screen resolution that they had was just too big. I wanted to make it smaller. My eyes weren't as bad then as they are now. So I made it smaller, and I did my morning's tutorage and work, and left for lunch. When I got back, the IT team were all stood around my computer, and one of them said, "I'm friends with someone from the previous college you were at, and we want to know why you've been messing with the config settings." So I left that one. And I did do a course which I actually completed in C++ programming, but my interest was already in Pascal. I'd already migrated from BASIC, which is what I started on in the 8-bit era with Commodore 64 and the Tandy TRS-80. I'd migrated from BASIC to Pascal and was enjoying Pascal, and had gotten my hands on, I think I was using an Amiga at the time, and had the free Pascal compiler for that. And for the college work that I had done that far, I'd migrated over to a 386 as well. So that's basically my schooling. I didn't complete any of those courses. But I then did about 4 years of basically unskilled work. I worked in a taxi cab office answering phones and all that kind of stuff, and eventually took a job in a mortgage company selling mortgages. And while I was at that mortgage company, it was a brokerage. While I was there, the CEO recognized that I was useful with the computers and asked me if I would rewrite his database, which at the time was written in FileMaker, if I could
Mm-hmm.
create a rewrite of it using Delphi. So actually, he wanted me to rewrite it, I think, in FilePro, and I said to him, "I'll rewrite this, but only if I can do it in Delphi," because I'd become quite familiar with the product by this point. Now, I had, prior to that, released a shareware HTML editor that went, I think, it was like 150,000 downloads in its first week, and that was on CNET Central downloads. You remember download.com?
I do.
And Two Cows had another 150 or so. So it went quite popular, but it was freeware, and I didn't make any profit from it or anything. But I'd had some experience building an actual app full lifecycle. So I agreed to do this mortgage brokers database, and I wrote that whole product. It was a working replica of what he already had, with a few tweaks that he'd asked for, and it worked. And then we decided not to use it, because that was right around the time that the credit crunch uh, took place in the States,
Mm-hmm.
and his business essentially went out of business.
Oh,
But I had already interviewed for a position with Stephen Ball. Some of you all know Stephen Ball, our
yeah.
MVP from the UK, and I
He's
believe
also,
he's SC again now.
yeah, I think he's I'm not sure exact position. He's in charge of the SCs, I think,
Right.
essentially now. But yeah.
So yeah, Stephen Ball was at the time working for a company in the leisure industry on a product that he'd essentially written, I think, from scratch himself, or at least he took it over early. And he needed a Delphi developer to assist. So I went and interviewed for it. He liked my results to the aptitude tests, and that's how I began my career actually writing software. So entirely unqualified in what I do is the answer. And I don't even have, I don't have a qualification in anything else either, just my high school diplomas.
I did work with a guy that had a computer science degree, and there was actually some interesting stuff that I learned working with him. That was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know about that because I didn't have the
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 education.
education. But and I've tried to learn some things to fill in some of those gaps and stuff.
Hmm.
But a lot of the stuff I mean, I don't diss on university at all, but a lot of the stuff is more academic, really.
So yeah, I mean, I've had the same experience. I've worked with qualified people. And I have also worked with. I'm sure that anybody unqualified has come across this. I have also worked with people that have exhibited a "I paid for my qualification" snobbery. And so I kind of get it, because if you've paid money for your education, you want to believe that it's more valuable than perhaps somebody that didn't, or that got educated in other ways. So I get it, but I've come across that. But I've also, as you say, come across learning from somebody that was formally educated, and it generally tends to be terminology. Okay,
Yeah.
so like you learn the terminology for things that, you know, I learned how to do this through this tutorial or this online book or this whatever. I learned how to do it. I came up with this algorithm, and then you meet somebody who knows the correct way to describe what you've done.
Right.
So yeah, I've come across that. If you ask me, the measure of what makes somebody a good developer or not a good developer has actually nothing to do with their education, because you can come about the education in many different ways. What makes somebody good or bad is whether they are actually interested in what they're doing. Because if you're actually interested in it, if it is a hobby, or you use it to, you know, solve actual problems in your business or something like that, then you actually apply yourself to learning the knowledge.
Yep.
If you're learning it for academic reasons only, well, then that's knowledge that's just going to evaporate, like my knowledge of electronics. So,
Yeah. Yeah. There's a question here. How do I switch from software to engineering? I worked at a company as an E-plan engineer, but after a year, I had to search for a new employer. I don't know. Good question.
E-plan,
I'm not sure what E-plan is.
that's not. I'm not sure I understand that question.
So it used an Aztec C compiler on the Amiga. It didn't have a PC. And Glenn's asked, oh, he's asking this other guy if he tried HighSoft Pascal for the Amiga.
So my experience on the Amiga was predominantly in BASIC still, because of Amos BASIC. So I came to the party with Amigas late. I had a Commodore 64 until, you know, well into the Amiga's history. But a friend had the Amiga 500, and I would go to his house, and we were actually writing a compiler, but it was the kind of compiler that we were completely inventing the language from scratch, and we were making the mistake of trying to make it a natural language, like a human type
Right. Yep.
language. But I would type up little programs in BASIC on my Commodore 64, little test routines, and then I'd literally copy them down on paper and walk over to him and put them into his Amiga, into Amos BASIC. So eventually, when the Amiga 1200 was released, is when I got my hands on one. My parents bought one for me for Christmas. I think I don't know, 11 or 12 years old. And that's when I really had access to, you know, the Amiga was an amazing machine. It was a step up from the Commodore 64. It was a light year ahead. And to get the 1200, of course, I had the 020 and the extra RAM and everything. So it was a great step forward. And I installed.
Borrow your snips.
Yes, you can. And I installed Amos Basic on that. And I never did I tried using Blitz, but I was already familiar with Amos, so I never really switched. It wasn't until I went to college, in inverted quotes, that I needed Pascal, and I had already become familiar with Pascal in the meanwhile. So I'd worked on, kind of get my dates right now. Remember, this is 30 years ago. I'd worked on some Pascal before college, and I think it must have been Free Pascal I'd installed on my Amiga before I got there. But I needed Pascal because I was learning Pascal at the college, so I used the Amiga for that. And that's when I was, so that would have been 95, 96. So by that time, I tried Pascal. And I was searching for I eventually bought a 286 and then a 386 for the PC stuff that we were doing.
Mhm.
We were reading Peter Norton's guide to the IBM PC and learning all about BIOS calls and all that kind of fun stuff.
Isn't it crazy you think back when Norton used to be this expert on computers that you learn stuff from and not a antivirus company?
Yeah, and of course, you know, he sold the antivirus company too. So I mean, we're really showing our age here. So yeah, basically, I never did try another Pascal. I tried Free Pascal on the Amiga, and most of what I did with that was, if I recall correctly, creating little graphics libraries to render and use the flitter and stuff. So, yeah, so I never did try any other Pascals. And then on the PC side, I started, I think, in Turbo Pascal 5.5. Yeah, I had Turbo Pascal 5.5 and Turbo C, which was the course I actually did complete at college.
I'll be right back. I gotta throw this away.
And then migrated to Turbo Pascal 7. I didn't enter Delphi until late. I was aware of it, but I didn't get my hands on a copy until Delphi 5 and loved it. I mean, immediately it was an amazing tool. Delphi 5 was a really good version, as was 6 and 7. And the way I got my hands on Delphi 7 actually was when that guy at the mortgage company said, rewrite my database. I said, sure, if I can do it in Delphi and you buy me a license. And that's how I got my license. Okay, I am looking for resistor holes here. So I'm just looking for R9. There it is. Okay. And I can't quite read the chat screen from here, so when Jim comes back, I'll let him catch that up. I was just saying, Jim, I can't read the chat from here, so you're welcome to catch that up.
I will. I've got a little trash can, and I got my own snips.
15 and 26. I think I have another pair. Yeah, I do.
I really like these. These get really down.
Do you know
flat.
what? You're absolutely right. You see that pair? That's kind of these, which are basically
Yes.
the same as we have, are way better. There are already so many joins in there.
Yilmaz says qualifications is what you produce. It isn't about titles or academics. Not necessary. There are many people that have good title but has done nothing. Like Steve Jobs is a good example, who has great products but has no title. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good point.
I'm not in the slightest embarrassed by it. So actually, I think Randy Tapson is on, and we had this discussion in the car once, and he was saying about how you can't really call yourself an engineer if you haven't qualified as an engineer. That is a title given to a qualification.
Yes.
And I played devil's advocate in the conversation, but essentially I believe the same thing. All right. But I had this conversation with somebody in an online forum that wanted to call themselves a computer scientist. Now, the only questions I'd ever seen this person ask were about how to use the runtime library for UI work. If you spend all of your time using UI frameworks if all of your time is spent in a UI framework, say VCL or FMX or something like that, you are not a computer scientist.
Yeah.
Right. To be called a computer scientist, you have to have published a work which advances computer science in some way.
Yeah.
Right. Or you have to actually have studied as a scientist in the discipline.
Yeah.
And to be an engineer, you have to have the qualification. And this person just couldn't seem to accept. Oh, no. Who decides who gets these qualifications was the question. I'm like, well, the universities do. But they're just people who just come up with this stuff. And I'm thinking, well, okay, the next time I need a doctor, I'll go find somebody that calls himself a doctor but don't have the qualification.
Well, so doctors is one of those things that is, well, yeah. Well, there's a couple things that make a doctor, but yeah, there are rules around that title.
Right.
There's an interesting thing though. There's some people that are wanting to put, any computer programmer to have require that you have some sort of credentials behind it,
Right.
and stuff. And
well, they can try, but if you've ever listened to Uncle Bob, he'll tell you there is too much demand for software development.
Yeah.
There's no way to educate enough people quickly enough. I don't think we even have the infrastructure to do that.
Yeah.
So if it ever goes that way, of course, I will be out of work.
Well, I think they would
I think
grandfather us in.
Right.
We would probably be grandfathers at that point, but
Yeah, well, I've still got a while for that, but
That's true.
I have.
no, that's true.
Yeah.
Look at those. Those are beautiful. Beautiful. So actually, I was going to share a story. I was interviewing this guy, Steve, and I need to post the video I made with him. He lives here locally in Idaho. I was telling you about him. He runs I can't remember the company he runs. Makes Red Tag is one of their products. It's software that's used in power plants to manage tagging in, tagging out, and which is when you go into work on something, there's a process you go through.
Right.
And then also they do software for doing like checking the stations, as you go through and you do the checks and stuff like that. Anyway, I was talking to him and it's all written in Delphi, and he started this as a, trying to solve a problem he saw in the industry. And I was talking to him a bit and mentioned that he's the sole developer of it. And
Sorry, my thing had some kind of sleep timer and pulled itself down.
oh,
Sorry, yeah.
and was saying that he talk about how great it is that he's developed this software and is employed his family and his kids and a number of other people and stuff like that, and provided this service for all these people. And what comment he said though that I really liked is that he doesn't consider himself a programmer because he doesn't get paid to write code.
Okay.
He gets paid to solve problems for people. And
Right.
that's why he loves Delphi, is that he doesn't have to write a lot of code and be a programmer or have some degree or whatever to accomplish what he wants to accomplish. He just has to, or he just, puts it together. And that's one thing that's great about Delphi is it's really the original low code, development system.
The RAD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's so much you can do with writing little to no code with Delphi.
Right.
But if you want to, you can write all the code in the world. You can build your own memory manager in Delphi. Or use the
I've done.
Yeah. But you don't have to. And that's something I think is beautiful about it is that you have all these different levels of abstraction you can work at with it,
Right.
and much more so than a lot of other things. And especially, even on Windows, you have the ability to do inline assembly code.
Right.
It's like, how low do you want to go?
Which, by the way, feature request, give us that for Linux, please.
That would be cool.
That
Yeah.
would be nice. Yeah. Because I've got code that I can't compile until I get that.
Let's see. Borland Turbo Pascal was great. Saw a classmate write almost more perfect editor. Yeah.
I wrote a window manager in Turbo Pascal. I think it was, I'm not, I don't recall now if it was like 5 or 7. But I wrote a window manager. Basically, on a floppy disk start up, and you had a full GUI desktop in Turbo Pascal.
Mm-hmm.
And that little story I told you about the teacher challenging us to get his password. That was a terminate stay resident that was basically a terminate stay resident keylogger.
Yep.
Written in Turbo Pascal 7. And the way it got around Nova Networks is it didn't. At the time, if you installed Windows 95, you can install it one of two ways. You could either wipe the disk clean, install it, or you could install it on top of Windows 3.1.1.
Right.
And if you installed it on top of Windows 3.1.1, you still had the Windows 3.1.1 boot process, which included autoexec.bat. It just changed it to boot the 95 kernel. And so our IT team had upgraded several of the machines that way. And so all I had to do was Control C during the autoexec.bat to break into DOS and install the TSR from floppy. And then when it booted up, it would catch the Windows 95 password.
That's the thing about security is, encryption, I guess,
Right.
is that when you get like to the real nuts and bolts of it, it really comes down to the way
How
it's
it's used.
put together, how it's used, and the people.
Yeah.
The best hacks are done with social engineering, where
Right.
it's just getting people to give you their password.
Well, yeah, I mean, the other thing is, keeping in mind that I don't consider that hacking. I mean, sure, I gained access to information I shouldn't have had. But I actually wrote a program to do that. Okay. And I didn't have to break any, I didn't have to look up Novo Netware's networking protocol and find a loophole in the UML or any nonsense like that. So that most of that kind of hacking that gets called hacking, I just think of as script kiddie stuff. Like it's just scripting. Okay. The truly, as you say, the truly big hacks are engineering the people, is getting somebody to do something stupid enough, though it may not seem stupid at the time, to give you access to whatever it is you're after.
Yeah. Or discovering that somebody implemented something improperly.
Right. Yes, finding that that backdoor essentially.
Yep. It's like my nephew was doing his for his capstone project. They did a pen test for a business, and he's telling about some of the stuff they discovered, and it's just like it's really common stuff, but it was just really bad idea. It's just there's so many things that we do that are just such bad ideas that people don't even think about. And it doesn't matter what software you're running, but like they had a the employee entrance had a punch code,
Right.
thing on it, and everybody's code was default to the last four of their social, which technically is against the law, but it's a bad idea. And there was like, well, the social security numbers are secret. No, they're not. So I have a friend that's a private investigator. It's like, hey, if I give you someone's license plate number, could you give me their social? And he's like, yeah. When do you need it by? And I'm like, it's so easy. It's so you can just go park in the parking lot and you get people's license plate numbers and figure out their socials, and you'd be in the building. I didn't get all the details about how they got in, but he was kind of nervous what they could do or not, and he said he was surprised how far they got by, and it was so easy to get.
So easy to do.
It's just because people do.
But the other thing to keep in mind, I'm not going to say who this was, but I worked for a guy once who was very suspicious, and asked me to install cameras watching the staff. But he asked me to install them as discrete cameras. Like they're, I've worked at companies that are on camera, and you are on camera. There is a big camera in the corner of the room.
Right.
Everybody points at it, and it's there. But he wanted me to put in essentially
Buy cameras.
cameras, so in smoke detectors and stuff.
Yeah.
And I never did do it. But I let slip to a few friends at the company that he'd asked me to do that. And they said, no, nobody would do that. Nobody's that devious. Even he's not that devious. He wouldn't do that to spy on us. And that's something to keep in mind is you should never assume you're not being watched.
Yes.
Because that guy literally did ask me to do that. I wasn't making it up. I wanted me to put it on the network. And the devices existed for the case of if you had, say, a burglary and you wanted to catch who was doing what in the office. So yeah, it never trust in any circumstance that you are necessarily unobserved, right?
Yes.
So,
Yep, absolutely.
all right, I'm going to place these in. Oh,
It was a bad idea, but
maybe I have two spare. Is this the right resistance? I'm going to take another 2 minutes and check on the time here because we did get started late. I'm good. Okay, I'll be back.
All right. Can check on the cake while you're up there.
Yeah, I had a lot of noise going on up there, so what's that?
My daughter said she's making us a cake, so that's what I was referring to. Shoot, that's getting hot. Oh yeah, I should send this new video link on his Twitter. Good point. Thank you, Yilmaz. Start new stream. Can I edit the other video? Actually, let me go look. New stream. All right. Thank you, Yilmaz. That's a good suggestion. Look at that. Oh, man. Oh, I messed this one up. I'll figure it out, but I'm doing it the hard way now.
So your daughters and person I don't know appear to be making cake.
Cool. Yeah, they had a friend over.
You asked me to check on
Yeah,
cake
I
and
was
submit cake.
Not a huge deal, but thank you.
Well, I had to say hi while I was there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got 3 resistors here. I thought I only had 1 more to put in, so it's time to start doing the reckoning.
Sometimes there's extra resistors.
Yeah, they'll often put some of the kits I've had before. They'll often put extras in. So I'm looking for a. I think that's the one.
Come on.
That is not the one.
Ow, that's more. Schrodinger's cake. You don't know if it's there if you don't check on it.
Right. I always like the answer, who cares, it's a cat. I thought that was quite a brutal answer.
So I say curiosity killed the cat because Schrodinger's cat were both alive and dead until they opened the box. So Schrodinger's curiosity that killed the cat.
Killed the cat, yeah.
Or made the cat live.
Well, that's a good one. All right.
Yes, that's where the term came from. And they're like, really? I'm like, no, I just made that up. I'm like, oh, okay.
No, that's not what I expected. Resistors are killing me today.
So in this case, resistance was futile. Or
Something. Yeah, I guess the resistors are futile. Or
resistance wasn't futile. I don't know. Insert board joke here. Yeah, there we go. Look at that right there now. Just need more solder.
all right, you have a better light.
I do.
Would you check these 3 resistors and see if there is a 200K among them?
What color should it be?
Red, black, black, orange.
Red, black, orange. And when they put this color.
There's a brown that's very reddish.
Yeah, so well, that's clearly orange, black, brown. And that's clearly brown, red, black, brown.
Well, could it be black, black, orange? Red, black, black, orange?
Well, if this is orange, that's a different color orange.
Right.
So it's neither of
It's
those.
not that.
None of those are that.
Okay, so I was right when I looked for the first resistor that there is no such resistor. Let me make sure I didn't put that one in, because that would be the kind of stupid thing I would do, and that is indeed the stupid thing I did. So which ones am I going to say?
If resistors are resisting the resistance, what would be the effect be? Yeah.
All right, well, I need an R10, so that's what I need to find.
Should you put the resistor someplace else?
No, I did put that one in. I was looking for one that I'd already installed.
Ah,
So the R10 is a 3K, and that should be orange, black, brown, which I think you just saw.
yes, I did see that.
Okay, well, this one's the only one that looks like it's got orange in it.
You need more light. I got some more lights I could turn on.
No, it's good. Orange, black, black.
Lighting is one of those things you think you're good until you realize you don't have enough. And then you turn more on. You're like, oh my goodness, why wasn't I doing this before?
Right, it might actually make sense. So this one I've got here is orange, black, black, black with a tolerance band of brown. So that doesn't make sense.
So we were doing a road trip one time, and we got this DVD player that you could put in the car,
Right.
and we had 2 rows of kids.
And they're awful, those things. Yeah.
And what's that?
And those devices are awful.
Oh yeah. So the DVD player had a speaker in it, and the screen was big enough. So the boys were in the back seat, and the girls were in the middle seat, and the DVD player was set up so that they could see it. It was so they could all see it, but the speaker wasn't loud enough. We're like we're driving along, and I don't think the boys can hear in the back, and but they could see it okay. And I'm like, "Can you guys hear it?" And they're like, "Yeah, we can hear it." But I can see they're like leaning forward trying to listen, and I'm like, "You know what? Let's stop and get a cable to run the audio cable into the stereo system."
Right.
So okay, we do that. Then we start the movie over again, and my son goes at one point, he goes, "This movie's way funnier now that we can hear it."
I got the gist of what was going on, but I was missing all the gags.
So, but he's like, "Oh no, it's fine. I can hear okay." But then we got it. He's like, "Oh yeah, it was way better."
Yeah, we got those devices, and so we got like it's a DVD player built into the headrest type deal, and it just kept stalling on DVDs all the way, like
Really?
brand new DVDs because we just wanted to entertain the kid in the car. It just kept stalling on them and skipping on them, and I just thought to myself, I've actually still got those devices, and I just thought to myself, one of these days I'm going to open those devices up. I'm going to sling a Raspberry Pi Zero in there with a memory stick and a lithium battery to power it. And then I can stick it on the headrest. It doesn't necessarily have to be plugged in, but if it is, it will be charging. And I can play the movies direct off of SSD and it's not going to skip.
Yeah.
The resolution will still be bad.
Well, the screen's only gonna have so much resolution anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are, what are they, 640s, maybe less. So they're not particularly good resolution. They're like standard definition, less than even. But yeah, making a more stable variant of the DVD player makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Designing this.
So you can actually you don't need to unwrap that cable because the thing's
Yeah.
right there.
What I was going to do. So it's got the nameplate right here.
Right.
You can't tip it down because it hits
This is the
that.
nameplate.
Oh wait, that might do.
Maybe you're supposed to pull it up because it looks like it might slide up height wise.
What's that?
It looks like you can put some height on it.
What?
So like this handle.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm wrong. It doesn't do what I thought it did. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of weird.
So I'm just gonna take it off.
Looks like an item designed, and then somebody in marketing said you must put a logo here.
Well, I think it probably won't go much further because the sides are hitting it, but I can still get a little bit. But yeah, it's funny. It's just literally just the nameplate hanging down.
You can't see on the stream right now, but Jim is committing surgery with a pair of side snipes.
Not quite enough.
I'm gonna have a little go button what this resistor should be. Maybe if we can find it. I tried measuring them. At 10. Should be a 3K. But if I come up to 20, let's try measuring them. Yeah, that's gonna work. Better than my eyes. That's reading as a 10, so that's not it. Point 3. That reads to me as a 0.3. Unless I'm misunderstanding my decimals.
We got to look at the multiplier of where you're at.
Right, so that actually will be it. So I'm set to 20K and it's reading at 0.3. So I guess my multiplier is a 10. So that is my 3K.
There you go.
However, it says here that the color code for the 3K is orange, brown, orange, black, black, brown. And when I do see orange, brown, black, black, brown in it,
Yeah.
that to me looks like orange, black, black, black. What do you think?
That is orange, black, black, orange, 3 blacks and a brown.
Right. It's supposed to be orange, 2 blacks and a brown according to the thing, but it is the 0.3 on the.
Really?
Mhm.
Um.
Maybe a typo in the instructions.
Well, what's the black in that spot though? That black, because one spot's black is optional, it means the same thing if it's there or not.
Well, that spot is the multiplier, isn't it?
Yeah, so multiplier is 1 means
Right.
if it's not there, then
That's why I'm getting
yeah.
0.3.
So if it's not there, then it's the same value because you're not multiplying. You multiply it by nothing, right? If you
Oh,
don't
you're
multiply,
multiplying by 1. Okay.
yeah, then it's the same.
Okay, so I'm misreading the resistor. I'm going to install it because it's the closest I've got for sure.
All right, let me just try and do this without blinding you.
Get that iron back up to speed. Yeah, I mean, I really don't mind light on my face, but I do care if I'm blinded, which I think I already am according to how I'm reading these resistors today.
This outlet has these safety things on it. It's like you can't get it plugged in because it's got the safety things in place.
Well, the socket design used in the United States really confuses me anyway. It looks like an unsafe design to me. I kind of get it. So if you pull on a cord in the United States, the way the plug is designed, it generally will come out of the wall.
Right.
Right. In the UK, it's not the same. If you pull on it, the cord comes out of the bottom of the plug, and the 3 pins offer sufficient resistance that you can't yank a plug out of the socket, which seems like an unsafe thing. But then the socket connectors here are so basic. I found something inside the.
Is that blinding or is that okay?
That's good. Tip it down towards the table a little bit, if you can.
As far as I can tip it down.
That'll do.
That'll do.
As long as I don't stare at it, we'll be fine. Whoa. Yeah, we're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so inside, I found something inside the socket where basically the connectors don't, the connectors are too close. I guess the US socket's safer, but.
So there's actually some issues with it because if we start looking at it, that like the ones I can't remember what countries has it, but some countries have like the switch next to each socket, which is
The UK
Oh.
has. I'll fix that. The UK has the switch, which helps with switching it off right there at the source. Actually, with that buried into the table like that, that was okay.
all right. Go for it then.
Let's do that. That'll provide some light. Yeah, the UK has the switches, and we don't. So in the UK, you can't put by code. You can't put a socket, a regular socket, in the bathroom because you're not supposed to use electrical appliances in the bathroom. But for
Oh, is that why they don't put the light switch in the bathroom? The light switch is outside the bathroom.
No, the light switches you can have in the bathroom,
Okay.
but generally a light switch in the UK is right behind the door as you enter, so you can change the lights. I found in the United States a lot of houses, because they've been modified over the years, you'll find I walk into a room and there's no light switch on the wall, but if I cross the dark room and find, say you're in the kitchen, you find the island in the middle, it'll have a switch on the island, and that's because I guess there's no code for where you put the switches. But in the UK, it's always inside the door by code, and the sockets all have switches on them.
And then
And we work with
also
higher voltages.
a lot of other countries have fuses in the plugs,
Yep, same thing.
and the
Fuse in
US does not require that.
Right, same thing. The UK plug has a fuse in it. And the other thing that's interesting to me is I found a lot of times, because I've done, I've lived in several houses here now, and if you pull down, say, the light fixture, I found that these twisty caps, the electricians here use twisty caps. I don't like the twisty caps because I pulled down a ceiling fan once and a bunch of twisty caps go flying off, and I've no idea what was connected to what, and I've now got a rat's nest to look at. But in the UK, I'd never seen them before leaving the UK. Everywhere I would see what we call chocolate blocks. You put wire in one side and screw it down, and then put a wire in the other side and screw that down. And they
So what does it look like now?
it looks like a block of chocolate, like little chocolate blocks is what we call them. It's got like you put the two wires in opposing each other,
Oh, okay.
and then each of them has a screw to screw it down. And I like that connector because it doesn't come apart. If you take the fixture off, it holds together. So yeah, there's a lot of little differences like that. But yeah, I never trusted US sockets, probably just because I'm so familiar with the UK socket. When I first moved into my house, we had a guy come out to do an inspection, and he said, "Well, all of your earthing lines are connected together, but they're not connected to ground.
No.
Well, find the nearest one to ground, then and ground it."
Glenn says Edison plugs and sockets in the US and Canada are indeed unsafe.
Right.
Yeah, there's a number of issues. I remember seeing some of the issues are with it.
All right. I'm now looking for anywhere I've missed a resistor. What is R39? That's a 10K. That should be brown, black, red. Do I have a 10K? I can now shine these in that light. These both appear to be 10K.
UK and Australia and China have the same plug. Yes.
China has the same as the UK.
So these, or UK and China and Australia. That's what he said.
I didn't think that was it. I bought things from China when I was in the UK that didn't have an appropriate plug, but they might have just sent me the US plug. So this is indeed a 10K. So that's R39.
All right, that guy's soldered in.
I can't believe we've been here so long and I've only just gotten to the end of the resistors. Definitely not completing this kit at this rate. Though I will try.
I put a user in timeout. They keep sending junk messages, like just random emojis.
I know that if it was just criticism, you'd have let it roll, but
I would actually. I would. I sometimes like MVPs are like, I don't want to be told I can't report bugs. I'm like, no, please. Software has bugs.
bugs need to be reported.
Bugs need to be reported, and it's okay to write a blog post about a bug. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just putting random garbage junk emojis, and YouTube kept putting them on or moderating all of them. So I just put them on timeout. Hopefully that works. I don't know why it's always get somebody that wants to do that sort of thing, and maybe they're trying to communicate. I don't know. Not trying to be critical or rude by any means.
Yeah, it seems the older I get, the less concerned I am about whether I come across as critical or rude.
Glenn says all UK, Australia, and China have switches on their sockets.
Okay. That's more of an explanation. I bought a CNC mill, one of these desktop units from China once.
Nice.
And
You have it?
I actually, it is the one that I shipped with. So I didn't ship it. Let me explain this story a little bit better. After I moved to the US, I always intended to go back. I hadn't intended to meet and marry and stay in the country.
Yeah.
So basically I came here with not only a single suitcase, but it was the small suitcase, the roll-on, carry-on
Oh
thing.
wow.
that was what I came with. I packed enough clothes for about a week, and I came over with a little stipend for the moving cost that I was going to be here for a short while. And I planned to use that stipend to go out to the nearest, as I didn't know that it was Walmart, but the nearest Walmart or store that sold cheap clothing, and just get myself set up with some
Right.
basic stuff. So that was my plan. And then when I decided to stay, I did a trip. I did about 2 trips back, two, maybe even 3 trips back, which was all arranged by the company. They wanted me over there, so they flew me both ways. But on each of those trips, I did essentially the same thing. I took a large case with next to nothing in it, and I brought possessions from the UK over. And so the CNC mill, I disassembled, put the motors in a case, and brought them across with me. And so I do have that CNC mill.
But
I
it's
never
just,
made anything useful on it.
oh, so you reassembled it?
Oh, I reassembled it.
I thought you were gonna
Pretty
say that you just never got put back together. I was
No,
like,
no,
that
I
sounds
did.
like a me.
It exists. So I've used it, but then I told you I recently bought the Snapmaker,
Yeah.
and the Snapmaker is a fantastic 3-in-1. I like there have been some critiques of it from people that like the individual machines to have individual purposes. And certainly switching its purpose is not trivial, but it's a fantastic machine. Like, it's so easy to use, and I've made a few things on it. But I never used that old CNC mill. But I bought that from China. The reason that that came up is the power supply when I received it. I'm pretty certain the power supply was fine. Let me think back to what I did to fix it. Yeah, the power supply was fine, but the controller board was a clone of a Toshiba controller board, and they'd used all cheap parts. And the minute I plugged it in, one of the capacitors blew.
Mm.
I thought I was being shot at. Like, this thing was loud. It was, you don't have a capacitor that size here. It was one of the big old barrel capacitors that blew off of the thing.
Right.
And I was so terrified by that. I mean, I was on a phone call at the time, and I literally dived down. Like, he's really scared by whatever that noise was. But I was so terrified by that circuit and by the fact that that had blown on my first installation. I went and bought the replacement, the actual Toshiba board that it was cloning, and that worked fine out of the box first time. But I would not repair the one that they'd sent me because I didn't know enough about it. If I repaired it and I got the repair wrong, I'd just be blowing parts up again. But yeah, that's what reminded me when Glenn said they have plugs on the sockets and they need them. Some of the standards are, tolerances are a little bit out.
That's what we could do, is put on an old hacker movie to watch while we're doing this, and then make comments about it or something.
Yeah, I did watch a. This is also a thing that I think is a United States thing more so than the UK. Maybe it exists there, but my brother-in-law, not long after we'd met, took me out to a place where they put on a movie. I think it was Top Gun,
Mm-hmm.
and then they had a couple of professional comedians in the front of the studio just mocking it. It was
Oh.
actually kind of a fantastic thing. Now, I don't count myself as a professional comedian. A joke maybe, but not a comedian. But it might be interesting to do something like that. Okay, do I have any more resistors? I don't have any hanging around apart from these things, but
Randy Tapson says wire nuts are not used to join wires. The wire must be twisted first. That makes the physical connection. When used properly, wire nuts are completely safe to use. Wago connectors are gaining in popularity in the US. I use them in any new work that I do.
so I would only only dispute one small part of that. Once the nut is on, I'm sure that makes it secure, although I've had them fly off all over the place. But when you twist wires together, what I've noticed, and I do this for soldering as well, if you just twist them and then oppose them, they actually come apart real easily. If you fan the cable, the wires inside the cable, and mesh the fans, then twist, you get a much stronger. And I'll generally do that if I'm soldering wires together. I'll fan and twist and use Fender heat to get the solder through it. So
That's what I do too.
it may be the laziness of the electrician, but I don't buy into twisting cables. I just don't like doing it.
I yeah. I think I soldered the last time I rewired the bathroom. I think I put some solder on it. I fanned it, put them together, twisted them, put a little solder on it, and then put the wire nut over the top. And I made sure that I twisted all the same direction, because if you did it the opposite direction, obviously that would undo the
And stick some of that on it.
heat shrink tube. Yeah.
Right. I like to do really solid sound connections in wires, because you never know. I don't mind cutting a connection open several times to redo it. It's not a big deal. I just want it to hold together when it's.
But there's a lot like writing code though sometimes.
Mhm.
Is that robustness of making sure that you're, you know, that you double check that the code that's coming to your function is actually what you, or the values that are coming to your function are within the range you expect them to be, and that
Right.
how you're how you handle things and how you fail, and that you are going to report the correct error messages and stuff like that. That's
Right. So I was thinking about this
it's
yesterday.
extra effort, but I think it's worth it.
Right. I mean, it's always, to my mind, it's always worth doing the extra effort. But with one exception, I will cut corners when live streaming very often,
Yeah.
because you just can't think. I mean, I'm not actually thinking. I'm trying to robot code when I'm on a live stream, because I'm just, there's too many things going on. But I was thinking about this yesterday, and I can't remember the YouTuber talking about not branching code and
Yeah, the idea of not putting if statements in.
not putting if set. Well, no, sorry, not branching repos and trying to keep our
Oh,
code clean and all this stuff. So the way that I arrange my code, I think, is a little bit unusual. I must be, because I've had people comment that they're interested in it. But I will put everything behind interfaces. I picked that up from Nick Hodges, and I don't
yeah.
buy everything that I get from Nick Hodges' books, like put one interface per unit. I don't do that. I create an API unit with all my interfaces, and then I break out the classes into separate units, like little things like that. But I code two interfaces,
Yeah.
and each of my packages, you've seen it, I'll have 30 packages listed before a project very often, 30, 50 packages. And that's because each of those packages is a discrete piece of the functionality, right? It's the one package might be the threading code, one package might be the Unicode encoder, one package might be, I'll put each of them down. I basically use packages at the same level we used to use units. And the reason is that each of those packages is in its own repository, and each one has its own unit test associated with it, and I can run that through my CI. And also, when I pull it in, because I stick to Subversion versus Git, I can pull in just the source code directory. I don't have to pull in the tests and everything else with it.
Right.
But I was thinking about how that actually helps me to keep the code clean. And the simple answer is, if I need to fix something, not only is it behind an interface, but it's small. I
Right.
never have to work on a big piece of code
Yeah.
anymore.
That's that loosely coupled. Yeah.
Right. And to be honest, I've got coupling. I don't mind coupling so much. It's the component itself is small. And I'll use a mock if I'm going to test something. The only time that I'll use a mock is if I don't want the concrete class that would otherwise be tested to actually function. The example that's usually given, like a credit card processor, you
Right.
don't want it to actually process a credit card,
Right.
so you
Exactly.
provide a mock.
Mhm.
Well, I'll use a mock in that case. But at all of the times, I'll provide the concrete classes, because I want my tests to run on the concrete classes. I don't want the test to run on the mock. Testing mock code is pointless.
Well, the idea behind the mock is that
It provides this dependency.
it provides a dependency.
Right,
So you want to
but
test this.
if you test A
Mhm.
and it uses concrete dependencies B and C, then you get to test what happens when you use the concrete dependencies versus a mock.
So that's actually two. There's unit testing
Mhm.
is just testing this in isolation.
And then
Integration testing is testing
Right.
the stack.
I
And so you
tend
need
to-
both. Yeah.
I tend to think of unit testing. I don't unit test classes as such. I might say it's unit testing, but I don't unit test classes. I unit test methods.
Mhm.
And generally,
Ah.
So it's just that thing. I've seen so many code bases that unit test mocks. Like, well, you're wasting time testing the mock.
Well, the idea is ideally, and so there's what is the ideal versus what is practical.
Right.
But ideally, right, if you're testing, you want to have both tested. You test test against the mock dependency, so that you can test that this unit itself is working correctly,
Is
and then
working
you have
right.
the integration testing, the test against the.
I guess the reason I see that differently is because, like I said, I build packages which are essentially a unit. What we would have used for a unit before is a very small piece of functionality. And so it's not so often that I'm testing a large piece of code or a deeply integrated piece of code. I'm testing something in isolation anyway. But yes, I don't like the concept of testing something that isn't there. Like it's just wasting CPU cycles.
Well, you should be testing your thing, not,
Precisely. Yeah. You should be,
but
but yeah.
but it's dependency that you could mock as dependency because you don't.
Yeah, that I guess that's another part of it is I tend to only use. I mean, I occasionally use third-party code, but rarely. I'm using my own code, and I'm talking about my own programming hobby here. I'm not talking about what I do for work, obviously, because I follow the standards of the employer in that case. But
Right, right. I'll make a point. I'll argue my case, but at the end of the day, if someone says, "I want you to do this," okay, I'll do
yeah,
that. Not that I get a lot of writing code to specifications anymore, but unfortunately,
yeah,
or fortunately, I do get occasionally like an MVP or somebody will like get me on and I'll look at their code with them, and that's always fun to kind of dive through some code and figure things out together. I
yeah.
actually want to do a live stream of that more often.
I actually quite enjoy the process of debugging.
Yeah.
Well, I say debugging. It's not really debugging. It's stepping through the code. Like a lot of debugging is just reading. Uh,
A lot of software development is trial and error, really. People don't realize that. They just think that you write code, and it's like done. But nothing. I mean, nothing you do in real life is that way. And maybe surgery. I mean, you have to do it right the first time.
right.
But
You'd hope they get it right the first time.
but like you're writing a book. Writing a book is rewriting
Revision or revision.
revisions.
Yeah. But I've found that debugging. So using the using the debugging tools to determine what somebody's code is doing can sometimes be easier than trying to read their code.
Yes.
And that shouldn't really be the case, but very often unspinning the stack is sometimes easier than unspinning the written code.
Well, I think you need both to
Oh
see
yeah,
what's going
you
on.
can't
But yeah,
be without either one. Is probably how I would say it. But
yeah. I think that goes this way.
the biggest thing for me, as I mentioned there, with it, for me, the source control system actually is a tool that adds to how I write code. And this is one of the reasons why, for the longest time, I cannot switch to Git. Just can't do it because Git has two different versions of dependency support. So there's subtrees and submodules.
Right.
Neither one of them supports half the features that are in subversion. They don't allow you to pull in, for example, a subdirectory of a external repository.
Yeah, you can pull the entire repository.
You have to pull the whole thing, and they don't let you, for example, I forget which way around it is, but one of the types you generally need the client. You have to do an extra step as the client consuming the code, checking out the code. You
Right.
have to do an extra step to get the dependency, and in the other, the dependency comes out automatically, but it's fixed to a revision and
Right.
can't easily be updated to the new revision. And also committing changes back to it, it's more difficult because it's an external. So like that feature for me keeps me from Git, which otherwise everything else about Git seems perfectly fine. I'm perfectly happy with.
Yeah, the way that it does that, you can't get subdirectory or just part of a repository, it fundamentally changes the way you build your projects.
Right.
Because you have to think about that.
Well, so here's how. So one company that I worked for, somebody watching will know who I'm talking about, kept all of their code in a single repository, a huge
Yeah,
repository.
I've worked at places like that.
And they kept it that way primarily because Git didn't allow you to put or it wasn't Git that they were using, but a similar system that I equated to Git. I think it would be Curial or something. But it didn't allow you to put dependencies in properly, so you had to pull out this giant 5 GB code base. The company that I work for right now in each of their, they do have dependencies that pull out separately, but in each of their projects, they put a batch file to check out the dependencies, which means they also have to maintain the batch and make sure that that batch is compatible with the build servers that do check out the dependencies differently. So they're now maintaining additional stuff. And in both cases, they were being let down, in my opinion, by their version control system. Now, I've heard arguments for, well, you should use a dependency manager. Well, if you've ever gone on GitHub and looked at the various different projects, you'll come across, npm, pnp,
Right.
homebrew, all these different dependency managers. Should I now have to install 150 different dependency managers on my system to check out all the dependencies I need for a project? Or, you know, Subversion allows you to check out the dependency in a comfortable way, and that's why I've stuck with it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, if it works for you, it works for you. There's no reason to quit, in my
exactly.
opinion.
But it is a bugbear of mine that
You know, at the end of the day, you should be using a valid version control system. I don't think, people joke about just doing the backing up folders or zipping folders.
zip folders and send them.
Yeah, that's not really effective. And another thing is that you need to make sure you can recover from a new system, which I know you do. I know
Right.
you're like the poster child of that. And then, whatever you're using is fine. If you're still using Visual Source Safe, which Visual Source Safe, from everything I don't think I've used it, but from everything I've heard, it was totally unusable. But if you're as long as you're using something and you can, recover from your systems, set up a new system easily, then yeah, go for
We're
it.
good to go. Well, you say people joke about sending zips.
I worked at places doing that.
It's quite famously known that id Software, in the days of Doom and Quake, would work on floppies and zips, and that is terrifying. I mean, to be honest, the project would have been a lot smaller than projects tend to be today, because they were dealing with 640 megabyte memory spaces. The graphical resources were a lot smaller.
It's really interesting to think about, when you used to write code or games or whatever, and you had these really tight limitations of what you could do, and it just not. I mean, we still have limits, but it's just a totally different orders of magnitude the way you wish to deal with limitations before, and
I actually
couldn't do.
I actually think that developers today must be thinking, when a new machine comes out with more hardware, instead of, let's see how far we can push this hardware, they must be thinking, that'll make my job even easier. Thank you. Because we've got to that point where we've got more RAM than we need for most everything, or more performance in the CPU.
Yeah.
With the exception of, artificial intelligence, which is just, let's throw as much processing as we can at it. Let's brute force this thing.
Yeah, I was looking at, I think it was that Dave's Garage, talking about that. Realistically, the thing they're doing now with the drag racing is not, most of the time you don't need hugely optimized algorithms, or one compiler being slightly faster than another or whatever. Most of the time is not a big deal.
Not particularly relevant.
It's not particularly relevant because you're usually rating on user input and stuff like that. But there are always times that you need to optimize things more, and there are bottlenecks. But realistically, most of the time it's a matter of getting the project done and making it maintainable.
Right.
And
It depends on exactly what you're writing,
yeah.
mostly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, most line of business software, yeah, you're absolutely right. You don't necessarily need that kind of performance, especially if it's architected right. If you're doing a lot of most line of business software is essentially database software, right? So
Right.
pull something back from the database, you do something to it. If you're doing a lot of processing on the client side, you've probably architected that wrong. I say probably because there's going to be exceptions once I say that. But probably architected that wrong, because you really should be having the server do as much work as possible. But I found relational databases, I don't think I've ever worked at a place that used a relational database properly and actually made use of its relational features. And maybe that's a misunderstanding of relational databases. And now we've got this whole trend. I say trend, it's nothing new. It's probably a decade old, but this whole trend for NoSQL and so on,
Right.
a couple of decades old. But yeah, people just don't seem to have ever cottoned on to the real value of relational database.
What do you mean for that?
Well, so very often you'll get database tables that are related to each other by an ID, but they don't use the RDBMS's foreign key, private key,
Oh, really?
primary key.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
totally
I've always used those.
uncoupled tables. We should always use the coupling of the database
Yeah.
because it's faster. And then there's also this concept that you should never really store, you shouldn't normalize. Normalizing is a bad practice, essentially. You shouldn't store any piece of information more times than you have to. If you design the relationship of your database, you only need the address stored once. You don't need to have the address on this table as well so that it's easy to get in a select.
Right.
Right. So that's often, I've seen that very often. Use the right data type of the field. If the database engine supports it, use the data type. Don't just, shove a bunch of strings in. I've seen a lot of numbers in string columns, which means, of course, the engine can't index it and do anything fun with it. Yeah, a whole bunch of stuff. I've seen some very bad practices in that.
Yeah. So I was actually doing a data import from a system for a company I worked for before. We were a client. We were importing some data from their old system to the new system, and then I'm on site and I'm talking to the guy and find out he's the guy that set up the old database.
Right.
And I'm chatting with him, and he seems to know the stuff like you're talking about, but they're all over the place. They had data duplicated, multiple tables, and stuff like that. And now, granted, they were saying you should the importance of that, but there are times when there are optimizations that you do around the things you're saying.
Right.
But I'm finally like, okay, I got to ask, why is the social security number in every row relating to this person? And he's like, oh, well, the marshal that was assigned to oversee this that didn't have the technical knowledge said you got to keep that with it because you don't want to have that information and not know who it is. And I tried explaining the way foreign keys work, but he's like, no, you have to have that there. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I can understand that because
got overridden. Yeah, and that's a very common story. Got overridden by so and so in charge, right?
somebody didn't understand the technical side of it, but they made the requirement. My nephew just sent me there's a video. The website is down. I think it's like from way long time ago where it's just web guy versus sales guys kind of or something here with but I've seen it a few times, but the premise of it, this guy's the web developers playing what is that game? It was on the Xbox that was the Master Chief. Halo. He's playing Halo, and he gets this call on Skype, and the sales guy, he's like, "What you doing?" He goes, "I'm working," and he's playing Halo. But he's like, "Yeah, the website's down." He's like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I can't find it on the website. It's all down. It's not working." And so said you can reboot the website to fix it. And he's like, "Well, it's working for me." He goes, "Well, it's not working for anybody else. Reboot it." He's like, "All right, I'll reboot it." So he reboots it. And then the guy's like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 our homepage is gone." And he's like, "Yeah, you said the website was down." And he's like, no, the website's down, but the homepage was working before. Now it's gone.
I've had a similar experience to this.
Yeah, I've had exactly. Yeah. but it was this, then of course he gets a call from somebody else, and it's this whole, series of people that are in charge but don't understand the technical things, and they make requests that don't make sense based on their knowledge of things. But that's not always the case. I've worked with people before that do know, the managers that do know their stuff, but that's the stereotype, is that they don't.
Right.
But Dilbert.
I found C18. 15, I need 15 and 15, 16, 17. So I'm working backwards now. 17, 15. It just needs 16. There it is. And there's got to be one more.
So that Brainstorm movie with Christopher Walken is actually a really good movie. It explores the they built this brain computer interface, and then kind of the government comes in as a they're trying to find what's the market for it. It's a pure R&D project, and
Right.
then they got to figure out how to sell it,
And sell it.
and then how that goes from there. I really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite movies.
You should link me on it.
So I actually just bought the Blu-ray.
Physical media?
Yeah. So I went on. So here's the thing. I found out that the movie was made as a way to showcase a new type of um, making a new video format.
All right. Okay.
And so in the movie, the when they're inside the brain computer interface, it's a different format. It's boxed, the aspect ratio changes.
Right. So they actually changed that in the filming.
Yes, so they changed it in the filming, and so they use this new technique in filming that part of it, and the different technique, the traditional technique, the rest of it. And so I went online and looked at some of the streaming places. They didn't. They
Can't stream it.
matted it all out to be the same, and so it totally ruins the because it was a big part of the experience of watching it. So I was like, yep, I'm gonna buy the the Blu-ray, and plus so if you want to borrow it, I don't know if you have a Blu-ray player anymore. This is the thing I ordered. I'm like, do I have a Blu-ray player?
I
I have an Xbox. That'll work.
It's oh no, I just lost one. Okay. I think I have a I have a drive, Blu-ray drive.
So I actually had there's a few interesting things about the production of that movie. One of the main actresses died towards the end of filming and it was actually kind of there was some questionable circumstances around that.
Right.
And
Like died was assisted in dying.
yeah, so she was on a trip on a yacht with somebody else, and then there was like a couple, like a romance jilted lover thing almost going on or something. I don't remember the details. I'm sure I'm getting it wrong, but there was definitely some questions being asked and stuff. So anyway, she died, so they had to refilm it with her sister for parts of it, and then they went through and re-edited, made it a different story. But and then like a couple times, or one point, the studio backed
Damn.
out.
I thought I twisted these so that none of them would fall out. Now one came out. Sorry, you were saying.
So like the studio backed out, and the producer had to go find a secure alternate funding, and I mean it's just like all sorts of crazy stuff happened.
I do like moving back into thoughts. I don't know where I get this one from. C8.
I had seen it on TV years ago and really liked it, and then rented it at some point and watched it, and then actually in my senior year, my speech teacher played it for the class because he thought it was really good, and that it talked about the challenges of communication and stuff, right? And that how this device solved that.
All right.
So that was interesting.
I think we had a lecture on something similar at one point, to do with like the idea of putting a third lobe in the human brain, which we're actually finally getting to the point that technology might be real at this point.
That was like we watched that Neuralink.
Neuralink, yeah.
It's kind of what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I mean it's essentially the same tech, but he's trying to make a smaller, more powerful version than what was planned, what had been previously done. But the same project, the same theory behind what they're doing. It's kind of terrifying. I like the question, what are you going to do about, pop-up ads? If you've got a Neuralink chip in your head and you get pop-up ads coming through.
So what is there? There's a movie on, or not a movie, I think it was a TV series on some streaming service that had that where people were getting pop-up ads on their implanted systems or something. It was
Yeah, I mean that would be awful. Like there was a movie called Her, which was about
yeah.
AI,
Uh-huh.
and they had something in that as well. I think with you could pay for a buddy, something like that. Like I want a buddy to travel with me, or you can pay for it by watching these ads and that kind of thing in the simulated world that they were stuck in.
Her didn't have the simulated world, but I know what you're talking
Then
about.
I'm confusing it with a TV show.
Her was the one where
Oh, that was the poet with the phone, the poet with the voice assistant.
Yeah.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
right.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm confusing it with a Netflix show I watched.
I saw that one though. I can't remember which one it is, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, I've killed myself with this. So 14, 20, where is the 17, 15 is in, 16 is in, 18 is in, C9, 11, 10, long, oh, I'm missing.
Down, so I didn't drip solder on the table. Well,
Well, I stole your mat, didn't I?
I,
Yeesh. Ah, the one capacitor that I lost, I'm just not finding where it needs to be. And I put them in and kind of twisted them up so that I could turn the board over for soldering.
and you, the one you didn't
I have
twist,
one
then
that
that was
just
one.
wasn't twisted. And I've got to figure out where that thing went. Well, it's not 3 and 7.
Sir. Mm.
It is. It's 23. Found it at last. Okay, let's hope I can turn this over without losing all my components.
I think I hear someone coming down the stairs, but there's nobody right here.
Bit of movement out there. Someone's moving around. Okay, let's get these soldered in, the capacitors. I think I can do all the capacitors in one, or all of the 104s in one go.
Where does this thing go then?
Wake back up, soldering iron.
So what keeps it from falling asleep?
There's a setting somewhere, but I don't.
I mean, does it just turn off every 5 minutes or something, or is
It's currently set to 10. That's what this 10 is. It's telling me it's a sleep timer, and it doesn't actually turn off. It goes down to like 200 degrees or something.
Mhm. I mean, but so what keeps it from falling asleep? Is it just every
The
10 minutes?
Tilt sensor.
Oh, it's tilt. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. That makes sense.
I guess it's using less energy to be zapped when you're not using it, but it's still ready to heat back up, and it gets back up pretty quick.
I could see that it could be bad for the tip maybe or something too.
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, did I get that one in right? Yeah, we good. So I can get rid of some of that solder.
Oh, is that what that is? Okay. They don't show. That's annoying. Does it? Nope, this is the screen. This.
Usually my mistake when I do soldering projects is getting the wrong tip. I need to have the right one this time, but on more than one occasion I've gotten the wrong size of tip. First time was a balloon project that I was working on, and I'd been in for dental surgery and was on opiates, and I thought I had the right tip until I woke up the next morning and saw what I'd done. Still, it worked though.
Apparently, I get pretty crazy when I'm on the coming out of the anesthetic. According to my wife, tells me stories. I'm like, that doesn't sound like me. Like, I didn't think so either, but it was you.
Loopy crazy, like
Yeah.
crazy, yeah. And a few funny ones with the wife as well. When the wife and I first met, she got what we believe to be West Nile virus from a mosquito bite. And nobody, doctors didn't want to diagnose it, basically.
Huh.
But she was, flu symptoms for days. And I remember one evening she had a fever, and she was literally so bad, she said to me the words, "Thinker no worky," to try and describe what was going on. Thinker no worky. And that's just become like a common running joke now. On the joke at the time, of course, I thought I was going to have to get to an ER, but okay, so here's what you can do. At some point in the future, you can inspect my soldering, and you'll be able to see approximately when I started, and approximately.
It's gotten better as you go.
It's actually gotten better, yeah.
Cool.
Usually they get worse, but no, it's gotten better. I think the last thing I sold was 2 years ago, probably.
Yeah, I don't solder a lot, but I mean, it's kind of I'm with, like you said earlier, the whole thing. I'm like, I'm gonna sit down and write some code. It works a different part of your brain, different way of doing things to do this. And I think it's kind of enjoyable to do something different.
Well, I very often, if I do something which I have I'm sure this is a neurosis and I probably need to see some therapist about it, but I have this thing of if I haven't been productive in my code for a few hours, then I feel like my time wasn't properly spent because I wasn't productive for that time in terms of my code. And it really only associates with my code. Everything else I can spend time doing. If this is TV hour, then I can happily sit and watch TV and be happy that I'm not being productive. But if it's coding hour and I didn't get coding done, or I didn't get much done, it irritates that part of my mind.
So the general rule of thumb about whether you should see a therapist about your neuroscience or not is if it interferes with your enjoyment of your day-to-day life.
Right. Yep. I guess I need to go and see a therapist about many, many things.
Like, so I have general anxiety disorder. And anxiety is normal. That's like you're, worrying about things or being concerned about things or whatever. But when it's like lasts for a longer period of time and where you're just like sometimes you lose the ability to function, panic attack or something like that, then that's like, okay, you need some assistance.
What is the disorder called when you have a complete lack of anxiety?
So that
When you just don't when you don't care.
so there is I don't know the thing. So it's actually an interesting conversation.
Okay.
The there are, I think, like psychopath or some, some of those
Psychopathy.
sociopath or something like that can be like complete lack of empathy or something like that, right?
Right.
But generally, lack of anxiety or something like that isn't, as far as I know, isn't a disorder that's diagnosed, because it doesn't uh it isn't something that causes people to not be able to deal with their daily life. It doesn't prevent functioning. But so that's the interesting thing, though, is that we think of crazy people or mentally ill people or people that are, whatever, as being like a binary state, you know,
Oh, right.
but it's not.
There's a spectrum of
It's a
everything.
spectrum of things. And so, you have somebody. So it's interesting, that I saw someone else talking about their general anxiety disorder, and I'm like, oh, I don't have general anxiety because it's different than that, or I'm faking or whatever,
Right.
and it's like, okay, the fact that I feel like I have imposter syndrome, or I have imposter syndrome about having anxiety, is a symptom
It
of
is
anxiety, and but because it's a spectrum, though, it's easy to feel like, this is not that, or this isn't the same as that,
right.
or for somebody from the outside to come in and say, oh, you don't really have that, you're faking it, or my aunt had anxiety and it was like this, so therefore you're faking it, or whatever, right?
Right.
And so it's hard to do that. But as far as I know, I was actually interested in an interview with somebody that was saying that the same thing, that they just kind of like even keel. They don't get
All the
worried.
time.
They don't get, things don't throw them off. They don't get upset about stuff. They're just like always kind of like, okay, this is what's going on.
Yep.
And but there's no disorder for that. That's just the way it is.
The condition right now. Yeah. And so for me, I kind of pretty much like that all the time, pretty level. I can get excited by a shock, an event that occurs that you're like, oh my goodness, right? That kind of thing. But then it dies off really quickly.
Uh-huh.
And things like, we had a earthquake a while back here in Boise, and my wife was talking with her friends about this thing for days. Uh, people were talking about this earthquake, and at that time, I went, "Is there an earthquake?" and sat down. I didn't care that the earthquake was taking place. I'm like, this thing isn't coming down on me right now. I'm not concerned. And then I struggled to understand the everybody talking about this event. I know that it was rare and therefore unusual, but that's me. I don't get flustered by things like that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it's some for some things I'm the same way, but the other things I do have, that I get anxiety just throws me in the loop, sometimes. And sometimes I'll be like really worked up, and it's like, what are you upset about? And it's like, it's just anxiety. Well, what's making you anxious? It's nothing. It just is. And I
Right.
realize it's kind of like allergies. I mean, with allergies, maybe you might know what you're allergic to, but it's not so much. It's just it's your brain overreacting to something, some sort of stimulus. That's it's not a big deal when it is, right? But your
Right.
your brain is you're reacting to it.
I'm going to take another timeout. It might be best to start coming to a close here actually,
Okay.
because it's getting a little bit late. I've got to drive back. Um,
What time is it?
it's just after 8,
Eight. Okay.
and if I give myself 30 minutes, it's 8:30 drive back. Um, I'll figure out whether I can stay longer, but I do want to take a break anyway. So,
All right.
all right,
I need to get a decent bedtime tonight. My son's starting a new job tomorrow, and I said I'd give him a ride to work.
right. You definitely need a good bedtime as well then.
Probably won't go to sleep right away anyway, because
I'm not going to call it right now because I've gotten basically all of the resistors, the inductors, and the capacitors. I've gotten half of the capacitors in. So I want to make sure that I put all of this kit back in a suitable place. Uh,
come on.
You having trouble with one there?
Oh, I got solder on these posts, and now I can't get this thing to slide on here.
And I think I will come back out and complete this kit with you, maybe next week.
Cool. That'd be cool.
So I will be right back.
All right. Oh, let's see. I guess I'm just sitting here not saying anything, but I don't want to say. Trying to get this thing to go on here, and it's not going on. I didn't think that through very well. I want to solder these posts on, and there we go. Of course, it's hot, so I can't really push on it. There we go. Now,
All right. So I'm now going to look with relatively fresh eyes at what I've done and see if I'm happy with it. What do you think? There's clearly some dodgy ones in there. I'll leave it for you to take a look at. You know what? I think I'll put this pin head out. No, I won't. There's some joints in there that I definitely would criticize.
It looks fun. I mean, it looks like I mean, like I like if I was to do it right. It's not like a factory level
Right.
soldering, but it looks hand soldered. It looks fine. I don't see any ones that look bad
So
or broken.
I learned this lesson a while back when I did the Xbox mod.
Uh-huh.
I was looking at these tutorials online, and basically people were attempting to bridge 2 points, and they're so close together and so small that they would sometimes do a solder bridge across the 2 pins. And then others would do like a very tiny wire attached across these 2 points. But as I watched them on the YouTube streams, they were zoomed in and making these joins, and I was sitting there criticizing their joins, going, "Oh, that's an awful, that's ugly connection you've made there." Until I came to do it myself, and I realized that they were so zoomed in. I'm surprised they could even see the connections they were joining. They must have been using the magnification to see them, and their joins were perfectly acceptable at that scale. All is forgiven. Yeah, I'm going to start putting this in a plastic wrap. How long were you streaming? 3 hours? I know we started an hour late, I think.
Yeah, that's a little over 3 hours. So, wow, I didn't think we'd come that long.
That's the thing I find with soldering. I mean, I've taken my time with this because I was struggling to identify the resistors, but it does take, it's kind of like packing envelopes. If you've ever had to do that,
Yep.
you get into the zone with it. It's somewhat therapeutic.
It's yeah. Oh, last time I did it, I was watching a movie. Last time I did some of this. That's why I
Right.
think it might be cool to do old hacker movies.
Yeah, happy movies or just like you go for just old B movies. I mean, there's some pretty fun ones to make fun of.
What time is this guy?
Is it? Oh, we could potentially replace this component. This is a micro USB on there, so we could potentially replace that with a more modern connector.
A micro or mini?
Now you've got me. I'm going to pull that out. I think it's micro.
Rich tech nabbit.
Yeah, I think that's micro, right?
That's mini.
Is that mini? Oh,
Yeah.
even worse.
Oops. I just.
Do you want to try the gun?
Nah, it's good.
Would you like to have a play with it?
Sure.
It's really fun. I'll get you the gun. It's really fun. I started desoldering a capacitor from one of my old computers with it, and it's super convenient. Just I actually don't know that it's still because I said the kid got a hold of it and disassembled it, so I don't know if it's actually assembled right. But I'll have a look at it.
So, what's your philosophy policy about your kid and being your online presence? Do you avoid saying his name or talking about him, or?
I generally avoid it, but I'm not precious to it. I'm also thinking though about his mother because when he was born, I don't think we posted a picture on Facebook until he was 2 or 3 years old.
Uh-huh.
So they clearly had, well, my wife clearly had concerns, but I've not. You know, I used to have concerns about using my own name online, and now I'm putting it everywhere. I don't really care so much anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he hasn't had the opportunity to choose. So.
Glenn suggested USB-C. So this is micro USB here.
Right, I guess I got micro and mini
Yeah.
the wrong way around. But yeah, we could. I think the pinouts are probably about the same for C, isn't it? Yeah, they've got to be the same pins. It's the transmit and TX. It's just the protocol that changed.
Yeah. It's this. Yeah. It's the same. It's the same. It's just a different form factor. There's three. Actually, there's four different form factors for that USB B. This is USB B.
Right.
The other end, the one that goes in your computer, uses USB A,
BA
and then there's
or A. Right.
there's the big one that usually sound like printers,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I know the one.
and then there's the mini, and then there's the micro, and then there's sub micro, which is even smaller than that one.
Right.
I have a camera that has a sub micro on it, and every time I go to use to pull the data across or charge it, I can't find the cable, and I order a new one, and then when it gets here, I find the old cable.
Do you have a piece of perf board or PCB with holes in it?
I probably do somewhere. Why?
I'm going to show you this toy. It's really kind of fun. So I really want to solder something though that I can unsolder with it. I can take one of these pins off of here.
Okay.
It's an old piece of nonsense. So actually, go ahead and take a tiny little piece of wire or something. One of these will do. Off-cut of wire. And while your iron is still hot,
I just turn it back on.
either or, I've just disconnected mine. So
It'll be a minute. It'll be warm.
go ahead and solder that pin in there somewhere. We can just wrap it around for a minute. But put a blob of solder in a piece of wire or a component or something.
Okay.
Yeah, you can solder that in if you wish.
I was actually thinking back to the day when I built a my first sound card.
Uh-huh.
It was a digital analog converter. It was plugged in the parallel port, and it did use a bunch of resistors to convert the digital signal coming out of your parallel port into a analog signal into sound.
Okay.
I think it'd be kind of fun to just recreate that for the.
That'd be fun. I mean, I've told you one project I would really like to do. And I haven't started on this yet, but it's for, the computer part of it's fairly easy. I'd like to build a computer using gears, cogs. Take those old wind-up toys, just destroy a wind-up toy and reuse the cogs to make and not gates from the pieces. And I've got a 3D printer, of course, I can print some pieces. But the catch with it would be that I would use a spring in each of the gates, a spring drive, an entrapment to slow the drive coming in, but an actual wind-up drive on each of those, each gate. And so essentially what you would end up with is this big wall of logic gates made mechanically that you'd have to go and wind up each gate in advance, but then you could push a button and have it take some data in, feed it through, maybe do an adder or something like that, and give you a result out entirely mechanically, no electricity involved. I'd love to build that circuit, so maybe we can put something like that on the ticket as well.
Did I send you that company that made those that you can buy the kits to do that?
They may come in something similar, but it was a tool. It was a here's some cogs to make a logic circuit, not so much a actual AND or gate.
Okay.
And a lot of these things, they're very limited in their capacity because they don't put a power drive behind it.
They're kind of.
Well, leave it in there. You can.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So basically, the tip of the gun is as a soldering iron. It's heating. It's hot. So what you do is you put it on there, give it half a second to melt the solder, and then pull the trigger. And if it's configured right, You're not getting suction. Hang on. Suction. Do I have to change something? So you've got 400 degrees. Oh, hang on. I do. I need to put vacuum on. Come on. Let's put vacuum on. I'm going to figure out how to use this tool in a minute. It should be turning on the vacuum right now. Press it and hold it.
Nope.
Okay, I know that's connected properly. It's a setting that I've got wrong. Auto. Maybe this isn't going to work. I really want to show off. It's so cool how this thing works. That's the hot air gun. That's for that. That's for that. Ah, there we go. Okay, we got suction. So you let it melt up and then hit the suction.
Oh wow!
It
It just like whoop disappeared.
just sucks it right off there.
Oh man, this is so much better than the other way.
It's so much easier to remove components with this thing.
That is really cool. Thank you.
No worries.
You have to definitely.
This box, I think it was somewhere between 120 and 180 bucks for the whole kit. It's not an expensive kit.
Well, I don't need to buy one now. I'll just borrow yours.
Well, of course, but
Yeah.
you know, you might wish to have one.
Actually, my dad has one. Actually,
Right.
my dad has a couple, I think.
Your dad has a lot of tools.
He does.
Uh,
Is it the trash can?
no, I was looking for my little tin. I will need the trash, but
Here's the about trash can.
so this is this project kit.
Okay.
Basically, I've gotten all of the resistors, the inductors,
Put it in here.
and the first round of capacitors on there. You just need to remember that bag goes with that kit.
That kit was that bag or that box.
Right. Okay.
So I'm gonna do one of the questions from here just for the heck of it, and then we'll.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to run a couple of questions here. Let's do a trash can on there.
All right. What will people look back at us 50 years from now and be shocked and appalled by?
With me?
I'm guessing back at society in general.
Oh, society in general. I'm gonna go with how we've treated the pandemic. They'd probably be appalled by how poorly we've done with this thing.
Yeah.
As if they're still there to look back.
Yeah. No kidding. That's going to be yeah, absolutely. I would say I would add maybe another one would be the way we're running. I think that the way we're running into here's a yeah, just I'm
Oh, that is in that kit. Yeah, that's gone rolling.
artificial intelligence and like the nonchalance we have about that. I think it's going to have some big consequences.
I think artificial intelligence will certainly, I mean, you can't avoid it having ramifications.
Yeah.
But what will probably be most appalling, we haven't done yet, and that is how we treat the brains that we create.
Yes. Yes. Well, it's interesting. There's so many things that were like, oh, the measure of intelligence is no animals use tools. I remember being taught that as a kid, and
It's
now
not
we're
true.
finding animals use tools.
Right.
You know,
There's some fascinating studies on corvids using tools.
on what?
Corvids, cravens and rows. Did you know? I just found this out recently. Everybody kind of knows what a collective term is for crows, right?
A murder of crows?
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know the collective term is for ravens?
No.
It's conspiracy.
Oh, I'd heard that. Yeah.
Conspiracy and murder. So yeah, that was something I picked up recently that was kind of fascinating. Where did the
But yeah, I think that actually there's a movie Rob Williams movie called Bicentennial Man.
I'm
that-
aware of it. I don't think I remember it. Well,
It's interesting because it does go into. I mean, the Rob Williams character he is this robot
right.
is just a standard robot for home cleaning and stuff like that, the standard home assistant, but then over time gains more intelligence and abilities and upgrades and stuff like that. And
Right.
then it's this uh but then goes through the process and the resistance around determining if he has any rights,
Right.
you know.
That's
And
I always like those stories. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no,
It
that's,
just
yeah.
reminds me there was a Star Trek episode that did it with Data. I mean,
Yeah. No, and it's a really interesting thing. So with there's so many things like the Turing test that we've built systems that now pass what we used to think was the limits
The-
of what was going to be intelligence. Uh and so we're moving the goalposts.
right.
And
Well, a
but
lot
the
of
question is going to be, even if something says that it believes it is sentient
Mhm.
or aware or has feelings,
Right.
you know, does that, what is that? I mean, I think it really we should consider that, really.
Well, I think the honest comparison is that if you can come up with criteria by which you can define humans as being sentient, yeah, how do you know that you are sentient, right?
So
You
that
can define those rules, and the AI cannot replicate those conditions. That would be the boundary, right? That would be where you determine the gap.
so I didn't study philosophy, but I believe one of the things is this idea that you cannot know somebody else is conscious.
Conscious or not, right?
You can only know that yourself is conscious. Now, I
Precisely.
don't know if you've seen the GPT-3 interview that the guy did.
Oh yeah, that he translated to a
Yeah, with the avatar.
put an
And there's
avatar in it.
people that built on that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've done a little bit with it, and I know there's a lot of art behind how you configure the way you're having a conversation with it.
Right.
But I can believe that that was legit, and I'll
Right.
take my
That would
word that that
certainly
was legit.
Turing test.
And that, yeah, it would pass the Turing test, and it claims it's conscious. It
Right.
claims it has feelings. It claims it has goals in life, and it's like,
I'm
we're here.
so that I heard about a lot of studies being done on comparing artificial neural nets to real neural networks.
Yes.
And in psychiatry and psychology, using those studies like to try and treat human conditions, human neurological conditions, or therapy conditions, whatever. And it occurred to me that if you're looking at a model simulated in a computer of a brain, and you can use that model to determine how you might help that brain to get past some problem, well, then that simulation has to be precise enough for you to make that determination, and is essentially doing the same function as the brain. And therefore, to my way of thinking, because I am not one to believe in spirits and souls and stuff, is alive. It is the same thing. It is a
Is this
copy of
this
that
was
brain.
this?
There was a probe, but it's in there, so I don't think that came with that. It came with something else, another device of yours that has. You went to get those clips, I think.
No, I didn't.
Okay, it was
If
with
it's
the
not yours,
project.
I'll put it with.
We'll put it with that. I mean, it's another set of films. Yeah, to my mind, a simulation that is accurate enough to simulate the original is a copy, and a copy means that you've copied that mind. Um, my personal feeling, like all the movies, the movies want to show you that AI will take, Terminator 2, Skynet, AI will take over. I think it'll be a very different thing. We'll most likely have AI as pets, which was already started with, the robot dogs and things like that.
Yep.
And then maybe someday as friends, like as substitutes for real people.
Mhm.
And eventually we'll actually come to care about them. And if we actually care about them as pets, friends, and members of society, then them inheriting the earth would not be, we'd think of them almost as children. It
Yeah.
would not be a negative thing for them to inherit the earth from us. And quite frankly, if we are screwing up the environment as badly as the studies are telling us, well, then maybe they will be our successors and survivors, right? So,
I honestly do think that they are going to be the future generation.
Right.
And not necessarily that a war will happen or whatever, but just that, we're going to change what it means. Well, we are changing what it means to be human
all the time.
and what it
Yeah.
means to be alive, and that it'll just be, the lines will start to blur between and eventually, that just will be the way it is.
At what point is the biological component no longer required? Right? You take the Borg. At what point do you no longer need a being in there? Right? So
I'm not sure how I told you this before, but I believe that if not in you and I lifetime, then the lifetime of our children, which
right.
I guess gets quite a bit of more leeway with years. But but anyway, it probably the next 50 to 100 years, we'll say, that and possibly even like Zuckerberg or Musk, at specific examples,
Right.
will come up. There will be a way they will build a system that is an artificial neural network of some sort
A storage
that
longevity.
will be trained to act like them.
Right.
Now, whether it is an upload of their mind or whether it is trained on their decisions or however that training takes place, they will build some sort of system that they will be able. They will set up some sort of legal entity
Right.
that when they pass away, this will run their
businesses, their
business.
life. Right.
And once that
Basically, yeah.
happens, then there's going to be like, they're going to have the legal conversations about, is that legal? And if it is, does that mean this is a life? Does it have rights?
It's essentially the is that my solder? I think
That is your solder. I was borrowing it.
I believe it. That's essentially the plot of Transcendence, which is somehow simultaneously both a good and bad movie. I don't know how they managed it.
Right?
It is both awful and actually quite fun at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's going to come down to determining. I mean, essentially, I think we're going to have to give the AI rights.
Yes.
And the simple fact is, when you hear about people talking about self-driving cars. If the self-driving car gets into an accident, who's responsible? Is it the driver? Is it the programmer? Is it then they're talking about the programmer that developed the thing could be responsible for it. Well, the programmer, first of all, did not make that decision. The premise is that the programmer pre-planned that decision for that machine.
Right.
Now, the programmer didn't do that. The very fundamentals of the technology of machine learning now is essentially all
the training,
the training, the neurology based stuff.
Well, and even if it was programmed in, there was somebody that made the specification that said this is the way it should be.
Sure, but I mean, generally,
Yeah.
it's the AI making a decision, and it's making a decision, and it's been trained to try to make the best decision based on spec, but it's making a decision as an independent entity effectively, and so you then have to determine who's responsible. Now, this to me is a very simple answer. The driver has in his user manual the clause that says you're supposed to still be driving. And the cars just help it.
Today.
Right.
But there will be a day that you'll get in a car that will not have driving.
Now, Elon Musk's theory, and I agree with him on this one, is that if AI assisted driving proves much safer than humans, which so far it has, much safer than having humans behind the wheel statistically, then we'll see more and more AI. And the more AI you see, the safer the roads will be, because all of those AIs are essentially working together. Even if they are disparate systems, they're working by the same rules. There's no humans to get in the way, right?
Right.
So if we got to that point that the cars are just driving and you no longer have it in your user manual that you have to take control, well, then the likelihood of an accident happening in that case is going to be so small that the car manufacturer would be more than happy to take on the cases that happen, right?
Well, and so here's the thing, though, is that realistically, if you get in an accident, who's at fault isn't usually that big of a deal. It's more about the insurance. The insurance settles all this.
Right.
And so insurance is purely driven by statistics, actuary tables, so on and so forth. So it's going to be the case. The insurance is going to be like, we don't care if the AI is driving. We're not paying out as often,
right? Because the AI was driving.
Because the AI was driving, and so
there's going to become a point. What will be the thing that drives the adoption of artificial intelligence driving is that insurance rates are going to go sky high if you're a
not.
bag of flesh
Yep.
behind the wheel, because they don't want to pay out those rates, and they're going to say we don't, and you're going to be like, but who's at fault if the AI is driving? And the insurance company's going to be like, we don't care because they're not getting in accidents. You're the idiot that is.
Yep. They are statistically much safer than you. You'll have. I know that in the UK, maybe here as well, we had an insurance company that was gender specific, and they said statistically men get into more accidents, so they gave a better premium for women to go on. You might get to that point where you get, oh, this is the human specific. Human specific versus the other species that we are living with.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So let's go ahead and log off the stream. This has been fun. Hopefully people have enjoyed it. I guess we'll see what the comments and stuff look like later. But